Story 1. Mom invited my sister to my wedding behind my back. She gave a speech about a nasty high school incident, so my husband kicked her out. Now my mom is siding with the sister. I, 27F, got married to my boyfriend of 7 years, Aaron, 27M, 4 days back. The wedding was great, except for one part which was ruined by my mom, 52F, and my estranged sister, Monica, 25F. She had to be kicked out by Aaron after the speech that she made, and my mother is going crazy about it because she thinks that Aaron was somehow in the wrong here. So, for context, Monica and I haven't spoken in almost 4 years because of an incident that took place at a Thanksgiving dinner that my parents were hosting. She'd been hitting on and subtly trying to flirt with Aaron throughout the evening, but I had somehow ignored it because I didn't want to ruin my parents' Thanksgiving dinner. But then, after dinner was done with and we were all just sitting around and chatting, Aaron came to me and told me that Monica was trying to come on to him and it was making him really uncomfortable. I lost my cool and confronted her in the living room where everybody was sitting, and it turned into a huge thing. She told me that it was all right because if Aaron had a problem with it, then he would have told her, which he didn't. But that was just because he was a generally quiet person and didn't like confrontations, which is why he'd approached me to deal with the situation. Then she said that Aaron deserves better and that's why she was hitting on him, because he should know what he deserves and not settle for me. My dad had to intervene and tell her that it was enough, so she got really annoyed and left. We hadn't seen or met each other since that day, which was a relief because Monica and I didn't really get along anyway. Ever since we were kids, she'd always been fiercely competitive, and even though I was older than her, she always tried to make me seem like the less competent and capable one. She was already my mother's favorite, but I guess she wanted to be my dad's favorite as well and couldn't stand the fact that he treated us both equally. Our relationship got even worse when both of us were in high school, and by the time we graduated college, we were barely on speaking terms. We would meet on the holidays and would ignore each other there, but after that one incident, I decided that I wasn't going to be attending any events that she would be there at. So I would ask my dad if she would be attending, and if she was, then I wouldn't go, and if she wasn't, then I would. It was the perfect system, and it helped that my dad respected my boundaries, unlike my mother, who always insisted that we patch things up despite how uncomfortable Aaron felt around her. Judging by that, I guess it's no surprise that she invited Monica to my wedding without even consulting with me first. I was pretty shocked when Monica showed up, and after the ceremony was over, I instantly confronted my mother about it. She told me that Monica was the one who suggested it. Of course she did when she heard that I was getting married. So my mother thought that it would be a good idea to invite her and we could finally patch things up and get along as sisters. I told her that it was a terrible idea and I wanted her to leave, but my mother said that nothing bad could come out of this, which she was really wrong about. While we were talking, Monica grabbed a mic and started off with her speech. I froze in my spot because I knew that she certainly wasn't going to say good things about me. It started off normally enough, where she made a toast to the new bride and groom, and then she started talking about this one incident from high school which she'd always held a grudge against me for. So in high school, when I was a senior and she was in her sophomore year, there had been this guy in my grade, Chris, who was pretty much everybody's crush, but he and I were just really great friends. Of course, that led to a lot of people getting really mad at me for no reason. I knew Chris because he and I were in middle school together, but then he'd left for like 2 years because his dad had moved out of state, and now he was finally back and a lot more attractive than he used to be. I never thought of him as anything more than a friend, and neither did he, but in spite of that, people seemed to hate me. But nobody hated me as much as Monica seemed to. I knew that she had a thing for Chris and couldn't stand the fact that he was so close to me. So she went crazy and decided to sabotage our friendship by spreading a rumor that apparently he and I were secretly dating and had even been bragging about it to her at home. That wasn't the case, and both Chris and I were aware of it. We also knew that this rumor was my sister's doing, so instead of giving in to her strategy to ruin our friendship, we decided to go along with it and started holding hands while strolling in the hallways and pretending that we were together, just so that Monica would feel jealous. We would even make a whole show out of it whenever she and her friends would walk past us, and the anger on her face is what we got a kick out of. It got to a point where everybody was in on the joke, and the plan had totally backfired because now people were making fun of Monica for spreading such insane rumors about us, and high school kids can be pretty nasty when they want to be. So one day, when some kid was making fun of her for lying, she decided that she was going to confront me in the cafeteria and give everyone a show. That didn't turn out too well for her, because as soon as she approached me, Chris came to my defense and told her off. He told her that she had no right to come to me and berate me for anything because she was the one who'd started that stupid rumor just so we'd stop being friends. He called her crazy, insecure, and jealous, and Monica got so mad that she started cursing at him. The language that she used was so terrible that Chris actually had to walk away because the words that she was using were actually so filthy. I couldn't stand it either, and I told her to shut up, but she just went on swearing at us. So in the heat of the moment, I grabbed her by the hair and slapped her. It wasn't my proudest moment, and both of us ended up getting in trouble for it, but to this day, she holds me responsible for ruining the next couple of years for her in high school because everybody just remembered her due to that one incident. I graduated, but she still had to spend the next 2 years in high school with the same people who had witnessed her first getting told off by the hottest guy in her senior year, and then getting slapped by her own older sister in front of everybody. Can't have been easy for her. But she brought it on herself, and I didn't think that it was my fault at all. But she narrated that entire incident in a way that made her seem like the victim, and I came off pretty badly in her version of the story. And then in her speech, she started telling everyone how I'd not only ruined school for her, but I'd apparently also ruined her relationship with our father because now my dad would barely even speak to her. But she didn't even mention the incident that made him stop talking to her. So Aaron finally got up from his seat, grabbed the mic, and took it away from her. Then he caught her by the arm and started dragging her away towards the door, and my mother tried to stop it. I just stood there rooted to the spot because I couldn't believe that this was all happening at my wedding. There was a bit of a fuss at the exit as my bridesmaids tried to push her out, but Monica and my mother fought with them. Eventually, both my mother and Monica ended up leaving the venue, and I was so upset that I walked away and hid in the restroom. I didn't even come out until Aaron came to me and reassured me that everything would be fine and that all the guests would judge Monica and my mother, not me. It didn't make me feel any better, but I knew that Aaron, my father, and everybody else was counting on me to stay strong, so the event didn't end on a bad note. So I went back out there and tried to put on a brave face so everybody else could forget about this. After the thing was over and everybody went back home, I talked to my dad about this, and he told me that he was going to talk to my mother and make her apologize to me. I told him that that wouldn't be necessary because I didn't care if she apologized or not, and he seemed to understand what I meant. It's been a few days since, and my mother contacted me the day before yesterday and told me that I needed to leave my husband because apparently he was the crazy one here. She called me up a few days ago, and I picked up the call because I assumed that she was going to apologize to me, and I had a lot of things that I wanted to say to her. But as soon as I picked up, I regretted it because she wasn't apologizing. She just wanted to tell me that she believed that Aaron was crazy and that I needed to leave him and get the marriage annulled. Her reason was that he'd physically tried to drag Monica away, and if he could put his hands on a woman that had nothing to do with him, then he wouldn't hesitate in doing the same to me. I thought that it was a bit of a stretch to compare Monica to me because I hadn't tried to hit on someone and make someone uncomfortable and then started playing the blame game and pretending to be the victim. That was all Monica, and Aaron wasn't going to let her ruin our wedding by making it all about herself, which is why he tried to drag her away, and even in doing so, he'd been pretty respectful of her. What Monica had said was unforgivable, and I told my mother that she should be glad that I didn't go up to her and slap her like I had all those years ago in the cafeteria. My mother started yelling at me and told me that both of us were the same and that Aaron and I needed help if we believed that violence was the answer to everything. She said that she knew that Monica was wrong for giving that speech and that she'd realized that she probably shouldn't have invited her without asking me first, but insisted that both my husband and I were wrong for supporting physical violence, and Monica could even sue him if she wanted to, but she wasn't out of the goodness of her heart because she didn't want to create more trouble for us than she already had. My mother thinks that we need to apologize, but I don't understand if we should or not. To be honest, this post is more on my husband's behalf than for me. Is my husband TA for physically dragging my estranged sister away from the mic and kicking her out of the venue after she delivered a nasty speech about me at our wedding? Update 1. It's been a week since I posted here, and most of the comments agree that my husband went a little too far in manhandling her. So we've decided that we're going to apologize to her for just that, but nothing else. Aaron has already crafted an apology letter that he's going to send to her personally, and I'm just hoping that this comes to an end soon. My mother's really been after me, trying to convince me to apologize to Monica for what happened at the wedding. She hasn't apologized to us yet, and neither do I hope for or expect one, because she probably doesn't even think that she did anything wrong, and her apology means nothing to me anyway. I just want my husband to apologize so our conscience remains clear, and after that, if she wants to, then she can apologize to us as well, and even if she doesn't, I'm okay with it because, like I said, her apology really means nothing to me. I know the truth and I know what kind of person she is, so I don't want to waste any more of my time thinking about her or my mother. I'm going to block my mother as soon as we're done with this because I know she's just never going to see my side of things. Ever since Monica was born, she always had a favorite, but I never imagined that she would let her bias take over to an extent where she couldn't even tell apart right from wrong. I think everybody with even half a brain would be able to tell that Monica never had any good intentions when it came to me and would think twice before inviting her to an event like a wedding, which was so important for the two of us. My mother's the one who's actually responsible for ruining everything, and yet she still feels that it's more important for Aaron and I to apologize than for Monica to apologize to us. At this point, I'm not even surprised because she always made sure that Monica never felt that she was even capable of making mistakes. To my mother, she'll always be just perfect, and I'm sick and tired of trying to live up to her crazy standards which she sets specifically for me. I always have to be the one who makes all the sacrifices and does all the forgiving, even when people, mostly Monica, aren't even sorry for what they did. I've tried to maintain a good relationship with her in spite of her behavior just because of my father, but now I think my father knows that I'm done with her and I can't do this all my life. So after we send the apology, I'm going to send a copy of it to my mother and inform her that it's done now because she might doubt the truthfulness of what I'm saying, and then she's out of our lives. Update 2. So Aaron and I emailed the apology to Monica and we thought that it'd be enough and that she wouldn't drag this on, but I really underestimated exactly how much she hates me, because she decided that it would be a good idea to take a screenshot of that email and post it on her social media so she could brag about how she made us beg for forgiveness. She put up a very haha gotcha kind of post and said that she received an apology from us even though she was the one who crashed our wedding and made a very humiliating speech just to insult me. It really made my blood boil and I found myself wishing there was a way to unsend emails after they'd already been sent or whatever. We don't follow each other on any platform, so it was actually a cousin of mine who sent me that post to tell me that this is what was going on behind my back. It felt infuriating to know that she was using our apology against us to insult us. Instead of going against her right away, I decided to call my mother and ask her what she felt about this. Luckily, I hadn't blocked her yet, and when I called her to ask about the post, she already had an explanation ready and told me that she was working on it and trying to convince Monica to take down that post. She tried to downplay how insulting that was by telling me that it was just her being petty and it meant nothing. She even said that people probably hadn't even bothered to read it, so I had nothing to worry about, even as my relatives actively texted me to ask about that post and even some folks from high school were asking about it. I told her that she had half an hour to get that post taken down, and if she couldn't do it, then I would have to take matters into my own hands and it wouldn't be nice. I had a lot more dirt on Monica than my mother could even imagine, and I knew certain things about her that I hadn't even mentioned in my post. If I put all that out on social media, then nobody would ever be able to see Monica the same way again, so if my mother didn't get Monica to take down that post, then things could get really ugly for her, and I didn't want to get into all of that drama either, so it would be in her best interest to take it down and hope that I wasn't feeling petty or vengeful. My mother promised me that she'd get it done, but almost an hour passed and the post still stayed up. So Aaron and I decided that it was time to finally expose Monica. There was obviously the truth about how Monica had tried to hit on and come on to Aaron at the Thanksgiving party, and then there was the truth about the Chris incident. But there was also another thing that I didn't mention in my post because it wasn't exactly relevant there. But this time I decided to go all out and talk about how Monica had an affair with her best friend's husband a couple of years ago. Hardly anybody knows about it because she and that guy had done a really good job of hushing people and keeping it all really secretive, and of course her best friend didn't want any of this news getting out because it was embarrassing for her, so she didn't tell many people about it either. But I knew all about it even though Monica didn't want me to. Her best friend also went to high school with us and made the mistake of confiding in a couple of her close friends, and one of those close friends talked to me about it because after all it involved my sister too. I hadn't told a soul about this affair that Monica had been a part of out of respect for her ex-best friend. But now I don't care anymore. I went public with it to make sure that everybody from our high school got to know what kind of person Monica was, and the best part about all of this was that I didn't even have to resort to lies or half-truths like Monica. Everything that I said about her was 100% true. The likes started pouring in as soon as I posted it because Monica had been pretty popular in high school and through college. People were pretty scandalized and interested to know about that affair and also how Monica had tried to hit on my husband. Everyone knew that Monica had a cruel streak in her, and my post was just proof that this wasn't anything new and that she'd just always been this way. My mother's encouragement only made her worse. After putting up that post, Erin and I finally felt a little better because we'd done enough to get back at her. I didn't want to entertain any calls or texts from friends or relatives, and mostly my mother, so I switched my phone off, and so did he. We decided not to look at our phones or any other electronic device for the next couple of hours and went out for a walk instead. Once we came back home, we started packing for our honeymoon, which we were supposed to leave for in a few days. By the time we finally got back to our phones, it was almost midnight. As soon as I turned it on, I almost had to shut it off again because there was just notification after notification from literally everyone I knew. I decided to check my mom's messages first, and unsurprisingly, she was on Monica's side and was telling me that I'd taken things too far by talking about that affair, which Monica really regretted. She told me that Monica was very upset and couldn't stop crying when she talked to her, as if that was supposed to make me feel bad for her. I really didn't, especially not after what she put me through. I didn't reply to my mother and went on to check the comments on my post, which were all against Monica, and that made me feel really vindicated. It's been one day since I put up that post, and by now pretty much all of my family and my entire high school population from when I was there has seen that post and has had something to say about Monica. I don't even feel bad about it because it was always her trying to get under my skin, and I always tried to ignore her, but this time she deserves this. So now the post is going to stay up for as long as I want to, no matter how much she cries about it. I'm not taking it down, and neither am I going to feel sorry about what I do. Update 3. Hi guys. It's been 2 weeks since I put up that post, and I took it down yesterday because I think it's reached its target audience and I don't want it on my feed anymore. I blocked my mother and Monica a few days after the post because I really didn't want them to have any access to me. Like, not even one bit. They've proved to me time and again that they don't deserve to be around me or even breathe the same air as me. My dad is completely on my side about this and thinks that I did the right thing, even if I had to expose Monica's ex-best friend for it. I didn't name her, so nobody really knows apart from the people who already knew who her best friend was, and that was pretty much our entire high school because the two of them had been quite thick ever since they were in their freshman year. But at least I didn't name her, so that's some consolation for both of us, and even if I did end up inadvertently exposing her, even that girl had been really mean to me because of Monica back then, so I don't feel particularly sorry about it. Erin and I are finally enjoying our honeymoon, and the only reason that I even remembered to post an update was because somebody DM'd me asking about what became of Chris, and I realized that I'd forgotten to tell you guys that we're still friends. He wasn't able to attend my wedding, unfortunately, because he was really down with the stomach flu, but we might meet in the next couple of weeks, and when we do, I'm going to make sure that I take a picture of us and post it for Monica to see. Also, my dad has been talking to me about my mother's irrational behavior when it comes to Monica and asked me if he should think about couples counseling or just straight-up divorce. I was surprised to learn that my father was considering getting divorced from my mom after all these years that they'd spent together. But he told me that he just wasn't feeling it anymore, and it was becoming more difficult for him to deal with my mom every day because of how weird she was acting. She had even tried to talk him into disinheriting me and leaving all their property and money to Monica because apparently I needed to be taught a lesson about family loyalty. My dad had to fight really hard for me, and he says that he's just absolutely emotionally drained trying to keep up with my mother. He said he's too old for this and needs a break, and honestly I agree. I know that my mother can't be an easy person to live with. I didn't tell him what to do, but I told him that I would support him regardless of what decision he makes. Even if he chooses to stay with my mom, I wouldn't mind it because that's what brings him joy. As long as he's happy, I'm happy. That being said, I really do hope they look into couples counseling at the very least because my mother definitely needs therapy. In fact, I think therapy would do a world of good to both my mother and my sister. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Wife secretly promised her son he could take over my business after college to get him to go. Now he's graduated and furious I won't hand it over, threatening to cut us off. I, 52M, got married to my wife, 50F, 2 years ago after dating for 3 years. My wife has a son, Joe, 21M, from her previous marriage, and he recently graduated with a business degree. Joe and I get along well, but it's not like we're the best of friends, and neither do we share a father-son relationship. My wife's ex-husband is still a part of his life, and they meet pretty often, so it's not like he's missing out on anything either. Now, the problem is that my wife had promised her son that he could take over my business once he graduated from college. I have a moderately successful catering business of my own that I inherited from my father when he passed away. I've been running it for almost 20 years now, not counting the years that I had been running it alongside my father before inheriting it, and I have no intention of giving it up, not until I retire at least. And there's still a lot of time to go until then. I really don't know why my wife thought it would be a good idea to promise Joe that he could take over the business without even consulting with me first. Last week, we attended his graduation party, and he took us out for dinner a little later in the evening, and that's where this came up. While we were having dessert, Joe started talking about how he wouldn't have to go looking for internships or jobs unlike his other friends from college, since he already had a plan in mind. And then he smiled at me. I was obviously lost, but I still smiled back and looked towards my wife so she could explain what was going on. She said nothing at the time, and we finished dinner, then left to go back home because Joe was going to spend the night with his friends in their apartment. On the drive back home, I decided to ask my wife what Joe had been talking about when he said that he already had a plan in mind. That's when she confessed to me that she'd kind of promised Joe before he left for college that I was going to let him take over my business when he graduated. I was a little shocked and told her that she needed to inform him that that was not going to happen, because obviously he was still very young and inexperienced, so I was not going to hand over the reins to him so soon, or maybe never at all, because there were far more capable and deserving employees of mine who could run the business. My wife began to argue with me in the car and told me that I was being silly, that she trusted Joe and knew that he would do a good job if I just let him try. I argued back and told her that there was no trying when it came to my business that my dad had started and given to me to take care of and grow. He could either handle it or he couldn't, and in my opinion, right now he was not ready for it. He was fresh out of college, and kids his age needed practice because they were just not mentally ready to take on the pressure. So he needed to intern somewhere, and if he did a good job, then maybe I would let him work under me, but he still had a long way to go before I trusted him to take over my business altogether. When I said this to my wife, she completely freaked out at me and started accusing me of being selfish and not thinking about Joe and his financial well-being. She told me that I was not acting like a father at all and I was being really self-involved, to which I said that it was true because I actually was not Joe's father, so I really didn't need to act like a father figure to him. At that point, she got really upset, and she made me pull over, and then she climbed down from the car and walked all the way home. But it was fine because we were just a couple of blocks away from our house anyway. I didn't go home right away and instead hit the bar because I was also very upset about this fight with my wife. I thought that she was being unreasonable, and I still think so. I came back home around midnight, and by then, my wife had already fallen asleep, so we didn't get a chance to discuss it that day. When we woke up the next morning, she pretended that everything was fine, so I didn't bring up the argument from the previous night either. But 2 days later, when Joe called me to ask about the business, I told him point blank that his mother hadn't discussed the idea with me first, and if she'd bothered to do that, then she would have known that I was not going to hand over the business to him, so he needed to find a job like all his other friends because whatever his mother had said was not happening anymore. He thought I was kidding at first, so I really had to force him to believe that I really wasn't going to let him take over. Now that I think of it, there had been a lot of instances over the last couple of years where he had hinted at taking over the business, but I had always laughed it off because I thought he must be joking. Had I known about the promise that my wife had made to her son, then I would have addressed those jokes and nipped this in the bud. After I told him that I was not letting him take over, he flipped out on me and yelled at me for making false promises and being selfish, just like his mother had, and then disconnected the call before I could even defend myself. I was at work at the time, so I didn't tell my wife anything since I was still busy and figured that I would talk to her once I got home. When I did get home, my wife was furious, and she didn't even wait for me to take off my coat before she started screaming at me. She told me that apparently Joe had called her right after the phone call with me and had tore into her for lying to him and leading him to believe that he would be allowed to take over my business once he graduated. And she told me that this was all my fault because now Joe was cutting us all out of his life since he didn't trust us anymore. I told her that none of this was my fault because I wasn't the one who told her son that he would be allowed to take over my business. I didn't make any promises to him, and neither did I make any promises to her that I didn't live up to. She had lied to her son for years, and now whatever Joe had decided was good for him, because had my mother lied to me the way she had, then I probably wouldn't have wanted to speak to her either. She got so mad that she just stormed out of the house while sobbing and told me that she was going to live with her sister for a while. I didn't try to stop her either because I was in a really bad mood after that argument, as I honestly didn't see how this was my fault. She left that day, and it's been 3 days since then, and she hasn't come back. We haven't even been able to talk to each other because I haven't called her, and neither has she tried to call me. So it's just been radio silence on both ends. Yesterday, I thought she'd called me, but instead it turned out to be her older sister who rang me just to berate me for the way I'd been behaving. She told me that my wife had been miserable ever since she left the house and hadn't stopped crying for even 1 second because now she felt like she was losing not only her son but also her husband. I'll admit that made me feel terrible about myself because the last thing that I wanted to do was make my wife cry. Her sister also told me that the only reason my wife had lied to her son about allowing him to take over the business was because her son was actually planning not to go to college in the first place. Apparently, Joe had been telling his mother that he actually wanted to join a band and see how that worked out for him, but my wife wanted him to go to college and get a degree first. The only way that she could think of was to give him the incentive of having a ready-made business to take over once he graduated. She didn't discuss it with me first because she knew that I was going to say no, but she believed that once he graduated, I would change my mind and see what a responsible young man he had turned into. She had also intended to discuss it with me at least once over the years, but she just failed to do so because she felt shy to ask me about it, since it wasn't her place to talk about the business, and Joe wasn't my son. I told her sister that I understood where my wife was coming from and I realized that she was just very concerned about her son's future, but that was still no excuse to lie to both her son and also me, in a way. Her sister told me that it wasn't her place to interfere in our marriage either, but she just wanted me to know that my wife was willing to work on our marriage as long as I apologized to her for being so hard on her and Joe. After saying that, she disconnected the call while I struggled to make up my mind on what to do. On one hand, I really wanted to reconcile with my wife and make things right, but on the other hand, I didn't think that this was my fault, so I don't understand why she wanted me to apologize when it was actually she who should be apologizing to me. It's been 1 whole day since the phone call, and I still haven't been able to make up my mind on what to do. Am I the asshole for telling my stepson that I was not going to let him take over my business after my wife had promised him without asking me first? Date 1. So I decided not to apologize to my wife after I read the comments here. I realized that I really wasn't in the wrong. If my wife wanted to convince her son to attend college, then there were several more clever and effective ways than just straight up lying to him about something that even she knew was not going to be possible. And even after that, she still had the chance to fix it by talking to me at least once. But she didn't even do that and decided to spring it on me after he had already graduated. So now if she wants to make this marriage work, she is going to have to be the one who sucks it up and apologizes to me. It's been close to a week since she left, and there's still no word from her. I have no idea what's going on in her head and what she plans to do in the future, but one thing's for sure. I am not going back to her begging for forgiveness like all the other times. She is the one who created this mess, so she's going to have to be the one who cleans it up. But thank you guys for all the advice and help. It actually helped me clear my head a little because she always does this. She screws up and then I'm always the one who has to go running after her just so that we can be together. Well, that might have worked for her before, but this time I'm putting my foot down. I cannot constantly be the one chasing after her and putting all the effort into making our marriage work. Update 2. It's been almost 2 weeks since my wife left and we haven't been talking. I almost contacted a lawyer today because I didn't think she would come back anytime soon, but thankfully she came back today at noon. She hasn't said much to me yet, but she has said that she's sorry for the way she behaved. That's good enough for me for now. I don't know what's going to happen with her and her son, though. If we are to go by how sad she seems, I don't think that she's fixed her fight with her son yet. To be honest, I don't even think I can call it a fight per se, because what really happened was that she lied to her son, and now that the truth has come out, he's refusing to speak to her. I hate to be the one to say it, but I really don't think that he did anything wrong here. She has apologized to me, but like I said, she's still very upset and isn't talking to me like she used to before. It's been very quiet around the house even though she is back. Joe has blocked me. I don't know if he has blocked his mother as well, but if he has, then that would explain why she is acting this way, since she can't even reach out to him right now, even to apologize to him. If she talks to me or asks me for advice, then I'll probably tell her to try and contact some of his friends to pass a message on to him. It'll be kind of embarrassing for him, but at least she'll have a way to speak to him. I don't even know what his father has to say about any of this because my wife hasn't talked to me about any of this yet. I am kind of curious to know what everybody else thinks of her plan to get Joe to attend college. I mean, it succeeded. Joe did complete college and graduated, but now he's not even talking to her, so I would say it kind of backfired. It's really saddening because I know how much she loves her son and how it was so important for her that her son goes to college. But now it's just all a total mess and she has nobody but herself to blame. Update 3. It's been 2 days since my wife came back to me, and she'd been really weird and quiet the past 2 days. But today we finally had to talk about everything that had happened since the graduation. Once again, she told me that she was sorry for talking to Joe without even asking me first if I was okay with that promise. I said that it was okay and thought that that would be it, but instead she just started crying and had a total breakdown while we were talking, and I was quite taken aback. As soon as she started crying, I hugged her and tried to comfort her, but there was just no consoling her. She went on crying and sobbing for almost an hour, and she kept mumbling about how she was so sorry for disappointing everybody in her family and that she wished she was a better wife or a better mother, but unfortunately she'd failed at both. It was concerning how badly she had broken down, and I felt awful for not checking up on her when she was at her sister's house because clearly she had been going through a lot. I know it was her own fault, but she still is my wife, and I should have tried to at least make things better. After almost an hour, when she finally stopped crying, I asked her if there was anything that I could do to make her feel better. She told me that she really just only wanted to talk to Joe right now to make things okay with him, but just as I had suspected, he had blocked her from everywhere and she didn't have any phone numbers of his friends to get to him. She tried to contact him through his father, her ex-husband, but even he had said that Joe did not want to speak to her and had told her that he was not going to help her out here because she was the one at fault, so she had to figure out her own way to make amends with him. So I told her that I would find a way for her to contact Joe and got to work almost immediately. I did some stalking on social media and found out who were close friends of Joe's. I remembered this one kid who seemed to be really close with him, and I found his account somehow. Once I found him, I sent out a message to him and hoped that he would see it and put us in touch with Joe. We explained everything that had happened, and I just pleaded with the guy to make a phone call and put us in touch with Joe. 1 hour later, my wife received a call from a number that she didn't recognize, and we were positive that it was Joe's friend calling. We answered the call, and thankfully it was Joe on the other line. I didn't hear the entire conversation, but I could hear my wife's end. She was apologizing profusely, and I almost felt bad for her because I knew how much she loved Joe. They went on arguing for a while, and my wife explained why she had done what she had done and told him that he would really appreciate that he had a college degree later on in life. And then she went on to say that if it was the only way to make him go to college, then she would do it again, and she started getting aggravated. After a while, I could tell that the conversation was not going the way that my wife had planned because she was getting all red in the face again and her neck was getting blotchy, so I tried to tell her to hang up and that she could have this discussion later, but they continued talking. And soon enough, it turned into a full-blown shouting match where I could also hear Joe yelling at his mother and my wife dishing it out just as rudely. I'd never heard my wife speaking to another person this way, so this was a surprise, especially because the person she was speaking to was her own son. She called him a lot of horrible things, and then she ended the call by saying that he was exactly like his father. After she ended the call, she was pretty hysterical and just ranted about how disgusted she was by her son for the next 15 minutes, and I let her because she needed it to get all that negativity out. After she calmed down, I asked her what exactly had happened, and she told me that on the call Joe had accused her of lying, which she said was true, and apologized to him for that. But then he told her that she was a terrible mother and that she had apparently ruined his life by forcing him to waste his years at college when he could have just as well joined the band and made a future for himself as a musician. He told her that she had ruined his dream and that he never wanted to speak to her again because she was one of the most selfish and heartless people he knew. That is really when my wife snapped, because everything she had done up until this point was for the betterment of her son's life. She knew that he would never be able to make it big as a musician because, as harsh as it sounds, he was just never very good at it and he was always kind of tone deaf. And even most of the people that he had been in the band with in high school were now pursuing other things in life, but he was the only fool still chasing after that dream. This is the exact same thing that happened with her ex-husband, where she had told him that she didn't want him to start a new business, especially when the one he'd started before was still failing, and he accused her of being unsupportive, which had eventually led to a lot of fights and problems in their marriage, which ended in divorce. That's what she meant when she told Joe that he was exactly like his father. She told me that she had always tried to look out for her son's best interests and tried to stop him from making bad decisions that would affect his future. But now she knew there was just no point in trying anymore, because he clearly was so oblivious that he didn't even know what was good for him and what wasn't. She told me that if her son now wanted to make her the villain in his life, she was cool with it and she wasn't going to try making things better anymore. She was sick of being blamed for every single thing that went wrong in his life or her ex-husband's life. So it was an emotionally heavy day for my wife, but I'm glad that she at least tried to sort things out, even if it went south eventually. She made a mistake and then she tried to correct it, but if they can't see that, then well, that's on them. She's calmed down considerably since then, and we had a peaceful dinner. She didn't bring up anything about Joe or her ex-husband after she had her meltdown. She's asleep right now, and I'm really hopeful that by tomorrow she'll be feeling better about all of this. Update for Hi everybody. So it's been almost a week since my wife stopped talking to her son, and today she received a call from her ex-husband saying that Joe wanted to talk to her and she needed to visit them at his house. She needed to come by herself because this was a family thing and I wasn't part of the family, so they wanted me to stay out of it. But my wife was very firm and she told them that she could either go to his house with me or she wouldn't be coming at all because she didn't want to deal with their nonsense on her own. So eventually they agreed to let me come, but they told me that I had to stay out of whatever discussion that they were going to have, which wasn't going to be a problem for me because I wasn't really interested in talking to either her ex-husband or Joe. When we got there, it looked like all of them were ready to drag her to court or something because they had these serious looks on their faces, and I think they were probably trying to intimidate my wife, but lucky for her that doesn't work on her. Once we were sitting in the living room, Joe wasted no time and told her that because she had forced him to go to college and waste 3 years of his life doing something that he had no interest in, it was time for her to stick to her promise and make me let him take over my business. Now I know that I'd said I wasn't going to interfere, but as soon as he said that, I interjected and asked him if he was crazy because that was obviously never going to happen, not now, not ever, not even if he was ready, because at this point I just didn't like the guy. He wasn't my son and I owed him nothing, so I told him so right to his face. And his father then told me that I wasn't part of this discussion, so I needed to just shut the hell up. That really rubbed me the wrong way because this was my catering business that they were talking about, so of course I had to be part of the discussion. I argued with my wife's ex-husband for a little bit, but my wife made me stop because it wasn't worth it, and I knew that, so I just fixed him with a dirty look and then kept quiet. Joe continued to insist that my wife talk to me and let him take over the business soon or else he really would cut her off. I expected my wife to hesitate a little, but she didn't, and I was really proud of her. She told Joe that she was doing nothing of the sort and that if he didn't want to be thankful that she helped him out in securing a future for himself, then that was fine with her, but he couldn't make any demands like these. She apologized for lying to him, but that was it, and she told him that she didn't owe him any more apologies for anything else because at the end of the day she was just trying to look out for him, and if he couldn't appreciate that, then she really would prefer for him to cut her off. Her ex-husband told her that he was going to take her to court if she didn't live up to the promise that she'd made, and she laughed right in his face and asked him if he even knew any attorney who would fight his case for him, knowing that they didn't even have a contract or any agreement to show for the promise that she had made. He got really flustered and told her that he wanted her out of his house right now, and we obliged. Even as we were about to get into our car and drive back home, Joe made sure that he screamed at his mother and told her how awful she was, but we chose to ignore it and just got back home as fast as we could because we didn't want to waste any more time on them. We're home now, and we hope that this situation with her son has blown over so we won't have to meet them again because today was a huge waste of our time and energy. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I went no contact with my dad after he abandoned me for his affair partner. After years of pressure, I agreed to reconcile, but then he and his affair partner verbally abused me during the dinner. When I was 13, my dad had an affair, left my mom, and moved in with his affair partner, who I'll call Jean. At first, my sister and I would visit every weekend, and I will admit he was a good dad, although I never liked Jean. When Jean got pregnant and had their son, our visits became less frequent, and my dad was more concerned with his new family. He would miss some of my recitals or my sister's competitions because he was busy with his son. When I was 16, Jean decided she wanted to move for a new job opportunity. My sister and I begged him not to leave us, but he just said, "I need to prioritize my family." He moved 10 hours away, and that pretty much ended our relationship. After that, I decided to go no contact, as it was clear he did not consider me family. My younger sister stayed in contact with him. He would try and call me and offer for me to come and visit with my sister, but I refused. When he would come back to see my sister, I would refuse to speak to him. When he turned up at the house, I didn't invite him to my high school or college graduations. I'm now 33 and have remained in no contact with him. Over the years, he has repeatedly tried contacting me and getting his family to contact me on his behalf to reconcile. I have avoided family events in case he attended, including my sister's wedding and baby showers. Now, 3 months ago, my dad and his family moved back to our hometown, and he has been relentlessly trying to reconcile. I have received messages from my half-brother and sister wanting a relationship, saying he's a great dad. My dad found out I'm getting married and keeps trying to contact me, even trying to speak to my fiancée. Jean messaged me saying that I have broken my dad's heart repeatedly, that I'm pathetic and should get therapy. I replied back that she was nothing more than a home wrecker, and then blocked her. Everyone seems to want me to let him back in my life. I'm sick of all the harassment and accidentally bumping into my dad and his family in town. Whenever I see him, I just walk away and refuse to speak to them. Everyone is saying he's a good dad and tried his best to remain in contact, but I pushed him away. Everyone is pressuring me. My mom, sister, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and even some of my friends. My fiancé has even started saying I'm the a-hole for shutting him out. It's all starting to get to me. So, Aita comments. Comment 1. NTA. But this is going to be brutal if your fiancé doesn't get on board with your pirate ship. Depending on the size of your hometown and how serious he is about pushing this, you may need to consider moving, especially if everyone around you is involved. Comment 2. You're allowed to have whatever kind of relationship you want with your father. Did your fiancé have to deal with being abandoned by your dad? Nope. Your sister was younger than you and may not have felt the loss as you did. You have the right to feel angry and hurt. Blockchain, this is the woman who pressured your father to leave your town. She had an affair with him that broke up your family. Your father did those things too. Neither one of them has any right to tell you how to react or feel. Deadbeat parents love to get back in their kids' lives when the kids are adults and no longer need to be parented and things are easy. You should feel totally free to do what is right for you. Tell everyone else that you no longer want to hear about this. They don't get to dictate how you feel. Whenever anyone brings it up, leave the room or put down the phone. Do not tolerate it and people will learn to shut up. Comment 3. NTA. I'd send them all a clear message that you do not consider him family after he quite clearly told you when you were 16 that you are not family. Are they currently aware of this? And also make it clear that you will start cutting them out of your life if they do not stop harassing you about this. Perhaps just throw them all in a group chat for this so you can send it once to everybody. Your fiancé siding with them instead of respecting your pretty clear boundary is worrying and would make me reconsider the marriage if he doesn't cut it out fast, as that's a massive red flag that doesn't bode well for your future with him. More info edit. Thank you for your comments. I haven't gotten through all of them, but I'm glad to know that most of you think I'm NTA, which is a huge relief as I thought I was going insane. As most of you pointed out, I'm going to have a serious conversation with my fiancé. He should have my back. If he continues to defend my dad, then I'm going to have to think if this relationship should go any further. We are 12 weeks out from the wedding, but we need to sort this out sooner rather than later. For information, I own a local business, and moving away is not an option. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and my dad is friends with a lot of people, including my fiancé's family. Also, my dad did not come back for me. He came back because Jane's parents needed help and care. He has not financially supported me since I was 17. He withheld my college fund to try and blackmail me into having a relationship with him, so I had to work and get loans. I've avoided events because my family uses it as a chance to force reconciliation. He also won't leave me alone and makes scenes. He'll come up to me talking as if nothing has happened, trying to hug me or start crying, and I can't simply cut everyone off. Everyone is on his side and against me, including my mother. Edit 2. To give you all a bit more context. When he left my mom for Jane, he only wanted us on the weekend. My mom offered him 50-50, but he refused. I didn't like Jane and was standoffish with her because I knew what they had done. My sister was too young to understand and was more accepting of her. Jane was mean to me but nice to my sister. When I was at my dad's, I felt uncomfortable, and she would purposefully leave me out of fun activities or plan things purely for my sister. We had a few arguments over minor things, but my dad always took her side. My dad and I used to have daddy-daughter dates at least once every 2 weeks. Jane put a stop to that when she had my half-brother. We went from going every weekend to once every 6 weeks. My dad was MIA and had finally gotten his precious son. He stopped trying with me when they moved. I was so upset that he chose to leave us. He didn't want custody. He just wanted us to visit him now and again and speak to him on the phone, parenting at a distance. So all of his focus was on his new family. When I graduated from high school and refused to invite him, everything blew up. Jane called me some terrible names, and so did my dad. He refused to give me my college fund unless I started being part of the family again. From what I gathered, he spent it on his new family. I'm sick of being the one to miss out on events with my family. I would be willing to be in the same room but not interact or even be civil, but he pushes things and makes it impossible. Update 1. Thank you for all of the comments. Although most seemed to be NTA, some were YTA. Some of you gave helpful suggestions which I am planning to take on board. I have just spoken to my fiancé, and unfortunately, it has not gone well. But at this point in time, I've had enough and want to run away and never come back. My fiancé knows my history with my dad and Jane. I explained to him that his siding with my father and pressuring me was hurting me, and as my fiancé, he should be supporting me. My fiancé, who I'll call Lou, told me he can't support me in doing something that he knows is wrong. He told me that he had spoken to my father and had an understanding of both sides of the story. He was told that I was standoffish and mean to Jane on meeting her, which put us on the wrong foot, that my dad has tried consistently over the years to reconnect with me, but I have ignored all attempts, that I've upset family members by refusing to attend birthdays, weddings, baby showers, etc., because he was attending, that I walked out of my fiancé's parents' party 3 weeks ago because my dad was there, and that I won't speak and will ignore my half-brother, 18, and half-sister, 14, if I see them. Still, he believes that if we both sat down and talked, we could sort this out and reconcile. I told Lou I didn't want this and wanted no contact, and asked why he was even speaking to my father. Lou admitted his father, who is friends with my dad, encouraged him to speak to him and hear him out. Lou told me my dad loved me very much and always wanted to be in my life, and has pictures of me. I'm guessing he got these from my family as my social media is set to private. Lou said my dad is heartbroken at the state of our relationship because I was being unreasonable about him moving away when I was young. Lou stated I got on the wrong foot with Jane and that I was not innocent in the breakdown of the relationship. He told me that everyone can see the truth but me and to look in the mirror because I'm the problem. Needless to say, I broke down crying and asked him why he was doing this to me and not supporting me. Lou claims to love me but won't stand by and watch me be a heartless a-hole. After he said this, I stood up, told him that he shouldn't marry a heartless a-hole, and walked out. I'm currently sitting in my car. My phone is blowing up with Lou trying to contact me, but I don't want to speak to him. I feel like I'm losing everything and everyone. I don't understand what's happening. Update 2. Hi everyone. Thanks for the comments for letting me sound off on you, as I desperately need an outside perspective. I know a lot of you are telling me to cut all contact with my family and leave town. That is not an option for me financially, and I would not be able to set up a business elsewhere. All my money is invested in it, and I have only managed to get established recently with a steady income, so relocating is not an option for me. Also, I love my friends and family and don't want to cut everyone off. I love my hometown. I grew up here. This is my life, and I'm not willing to walk away from it. Now, I didn't expect to write another update this fast, but a lot has happened today. So, First, I agreed to meet my dad to talk and try to get him to back off and leave me alone. I asked my mom to arrange it, just him, no one else. I wasn't sure if he would agree to that, but within 15 minutes of her calling, he was at the door. I asked my mom to stay and mediate. I asked him to give me space, to stop trying to get everyone on his side, and let me live my life. I told him he stopped being my father when he moved 10 hours away. I told him Jane was mean to me and told him about all the horrible things she had said to me over the years. I hate how he chose Jane and his new family over me, how he told me he had to prioritize them, and how he basically told me I wasn't family. I told him he was an a-hole for withholding my college fund, trying to blackmail me, and then spending it on his new family, and that I hate how I have missed major family events because he attended and would make them awkward. I told him I don't see his son and daughter as my family, and I'm sick of them trying to speak to me and approach me. He keeps making scenes every time he sees me and making me look like the bad guy. He keeps inserting himself into my life, going to my fiancé's family events, going behind my back to talk and sway Lou to his side. I hate how he cheated on my mom and broke our family up and then listened to Jane, who stopped our dates, missed my recital, reduced contact, and was more concerned about his son. He said he loves me and always has. He is never going to give up trying to reconnect, and he has given me enough space over the years. He is done hearing about my life from secondhand knowledge and is not willing to miss any more of it. He loves Jane and can't regret his past because he wouldn't have her or his 2 kids. He wishes he had done it differently and ended his marriage with my mom first. He said his kids are innocent and I shouldn't be taking it out on them. They just want to know their big sister. He also said that I was a difficult child who was rude and disrespectful to Jane, breaking her belongings, calling her names, and ruining day trips. When Jane got pregnant, she was high risk and my coming every week and starting arguments was stressing her out. So for her and his son's sake, he stopped the weekend visitation. He still spoke to us on the phone and took us out for dinner and days out, but just didn't let us sleep over. When his son was born, he was premature and had health complications, which meant him staying in hospital for weeks and frequent hospital admissions. Jane was also going through PPD, so he wasn't able to see us as much and had to miss some events when he was taking care of Jane and his son. Jane was unable to get a job locally and the opportunity was too good to pass up, so they had to move. He pointed out that he came back to town for weekends as much as he could to see us and would always invite us to fly out and spend vacations with him. He phoned every day, but I refused to speak to or see him. They had flown in for my graduation, but I refused to invite him, and he lost his temper and refused to give me my college fund. He apologized for this and tried to fix this a few weeks later and give me the money, but I refused. He has not spent the money. He still has it, and I have only to ask and I can have it. He had visited me at my college to try to talk to me, but I refused to see him. He then said he was not going to miss family events. He makes a scene because he misses me and just wants to talk to me and reconcile, but I always end up running away or shouting insults at him and Jane. He has been trying for 16 years to reconnect, but I shut him down at every turn, and he just wants to be my dad. He is an old friend of my fiancé's dad, and he hoped my fiancé could talk some sense into me and open a line of communication. He feels I never gave Jane a chance no matter how she tried in the beginning and hoped we could be civil. Jane hates knowing I talk bad about her and mean to her children and won't speak to him. Then he said that he is in therapy and wants me to join him for family sessions. He wants me to spend time with him one-on-one, stop being rude and mean to his children, stop trash-talking Jane to everyone, and actually give her a chance. He also wants me to invite him and his family to my wedding and walk me down the aisle. I want him to stop talking to my friends and getting others to try and talk to me on his behalf. I want him to keep Jane away from me completely, and that I'll be civil at events or in town providing he does not try and hug me or talk to me. My mom told him he was being unrealistic about some of the things he wants, especially regarding Jane and his other children. So we have agreed for now that I will attend 3 therapy sessions with him when he arranges it. My mom thinks I need individual therapy as well, that he will stop trying to interfere in my life and relationships, and that he will keep Jane away from me and talk to his kids to give me space. On my side, I will be civil to him in public as long as he respects my personal space and does not approach or pressure me. As for my fiancé, I still haven't spoken to him. He turned up at my mom's, but she refused to let him in. He keeps blowing up my phone, and so do his family and friends, telling me to hear him out. During my conversation with my dad, I found out my dad has paid for most of the vendors and services for my upcoming wedding, and they have been on speaking terms for quite some time, longer than I thought. Lou told me his family had paid for these, and I believed him. I feel betrayed by him, and I can't trust him. I'm going to have to speak to him eventually, but I don't feel ready. Update 3. I'm updating for those who have asked for an update and were supportive of me. This will be my last post, and I won't be posting again. Firstly, the deal with my dad is off the table. He couldn't even manage a week without overstepping my boundaries, so there will be no therapy sessions with him, and I will remain no contact. As you are all aware, after speaking to my dad, we agreed on a way forward, in my conditions. Keep Jane away from me, tell his kids to back off, and don't pressure me or invade my space. It lasted 3 days. Everyone seemed happy I'd forgiven my dad, and told me so. My sister was excited I was willing to give him a chance. And with some pressure, I agreed to have dinner with just her and my dad. When my sister and I arrived at the restaurant to meet our dad, he was not alone. He had invited Jane, my grandparents, his son, and his daughter. He got up and tried to hug me. I immediately became upset and asked why they were there. My dad told me that if we had any hope of repairing our relationship, I had to accept Jane and my younger siblings. I told him he had just broken our deal and to never contact me again, and I tried to leave. He refused to let me leave and grabbed hold of me. When I say all hell broke loose, I mean it. I started shouting at them. My dad, Jane, and grandparents tried to gaslight me and convince me to sit down. When that didn't work, things got very heated and a shouting match started, and a lot of unforgivable things were said by my dad and Jane, including remarks about my appearance and calling me a psychopath. My half-brother walked out of the restaurant, and my half-sister started to cry. My sister actually surprised me and defended me, shouting at my dad for ruining things after all this time when I had finally given him a chance. She even slapped Jane. She got me out of there and apologized to me. I think this was the first time she had really seen how Jane was with me and how she treated me. She kept saying she couldn't understand how Dad had spent years saying he would do anything to have me back and then doing this when he finally got his chance to rebuild the relationship. My dad has been trying to contact me, but I have blocked him and refused to talk to him. I have also refused to speak to my grandparents. My dad has tried to convince my mom and sister to speak to me, but I think he's burned his bridges with them. The incident from the restaurant has spread, and some people seem to be backing off. Like I said, what my dad and Jane shouted at me was unforgivable, and they were overheard, and this is a small town. Hopefully people will back off, and those who won't, I'm gonna have to cut them out. My sister is very unhappy with my dad and Jane and is not speaking to them. She is blaming them for me not having contact with them again. My sister is not letting them see her kids. I don't know if my sister will reconcile, but right now she is furious. My mom is also furious and apparently had a few choice words with my dad and Jane and has promised she will never pressure me to speak to him again. In any case, I'm going to go to individual therapy. I think I definitely need it. I do feel bad about my half-siblings as they haven't done anything wrong. I am maybe open to having a distanced kind of relationship with them in the future, but I'm not ready yet or know if I'll ever be. I did send them a message on Facebook to apologize and tell them they'd done nothing wrong. Lastly, to update you all in regards to my fiancé. Well, I spoke to him yesterday about everything. I had been radio silent since walking out on him. Basically, he was pressured by his father to speak to my dad and was fed a sob story of a misunderstood father desperately wanting to be in his daughter's life. Lou had become annoyed with me refusing to attend his family events and walking out of his mother's birthday party when I realized my dad and Jane was there, as he was getting pressure from his family about me ruining their events. He just wanted everyone to be happy and get along, clearly at my expense. Lou admitted that my dad had paid for some of the vendors for the wedding, but he did not know this until after it had already been paid. His father had told Lou that he and his mom had paid. My dad had told Lou it was a gift and that it was his way of contributing. Lou admitted my dad had asked him to speak to me on his behalf. I told Lou he had betrayed my trust, and I couldn't see myself marrying someone who does not support me. He broke down crying and apologizing to me and promising to never do it again. Lou was heartbroken and begged for a second chance. To those of you who wanted me to break up with him, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we are going to try and work through this. Apart from this issue, he had been the best partner, and I genuinely think that his family and my dad manipulated him. Lou has promised to stand up to his family and stop contacting my dad. I'm still living at my mom's as I still need some space, which I won't have if I move home. We are going to contact our wedding vendors and see our options are next week. Lou is begging for a postponement rather than canceling it altogether. We may still break up as actions speak louder than words, and I need to see if he can rebuild what we had and show me I can trust and depend on him. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My once supportive wife unexpectedly cheated on me and ruined what I thought was a perfect marriage. I can't describe the feeling I have now, as I'm still shaking. I am more in disbelief than I am angry. Me, 42M, husband, her, 39, were married for 17 years. I have never, ever thought she would do this to me. I really thought we had a happy family that everyone envies. We have been through our financial hardship together during our earlier days. She was very supportive of my then startup and basically lived off of her little income, and I really did appreciate and thanked her for going through it with me. I swore to live my life for her. I really don't know where to start or how long this has been going on. Thinking back, the first suspicion I had was about 2 years ago when she had to drive up to San Jose, we're in Southern Cal, for a funeral for one of her friend's dad and spend a night there. Then she called me to spend 2 more days there. While she was up there, I had no doubts then, but one thing I noted was she didn't talk anything about her 3 nights when she was up there. She only answered when I asked her. She's usually a very talkative person and talks a lot about anything and everything. But hey, it's a funeral, so not a really good subject to talk about in detail. I passed on it. Last year, one of her friends got married and she asked to spend a night for a bachelorette party/bridal shower. I knew the bride and I knew about the upcoming wedding that we were attending. Again, not a word about the party. It's a bachelorette party, so what happens there stays there, so I guess I was okay with her not saying much. But in the past, she has said a lot about what she did in the other bridal shower, not the details, but at least what she ate, who was there, etc. I started making enough for her not to work, and she's a full-time housewife for about 8 years now. There were 2 instances that I know of where she was late to pick up my child at school. Once she said she was out shopping and got caught up in traffic. She did not have anything new purchased that day and said she didn't find anything she liked. Another time she said she took a nap and slept in. To me, those are not acceptable. I wanted to ask my child about the time she was late for pickup, but I really didn't want to have my child involved. But I may now. COVID-19. This is when I started being suspicious. My child has told me that she's been going out for an extended time. When I asked her about it, she would make some BS stuff up, and I started doubting and became paranoid. It's been about 3 weeks since my child's school started to have the option of kids going back. I'd rather not have my child go back, but she insisted. She's a full-time stay-at-home mom, so I see no reason to hurry back to school unless she has something else in her mind. I got paranoid and I thought of something that maybe I shouldn't have, nor should I. I used to have an app that I used to record my slashing or snoring at night. I had the app running on my tablet and my intention was to catch her on a phone call. Nothing notable happened until Monday. I got more than a phone call. I don't want to go into detail, but I stopped listening to it as I got sick to my stomach. I did not confront her about it yet. I don't know how to, and whether to use the recording as hard evidence. I really don't know how, but I will have to act quickly. Divorce is the first thing on my mind, but raising a child in a divorced family is not my preference. Plus, her being a stay-at-home mom and me having a business, I will have to give up a lot on my financials. I don't know. Edit. Thank you everyone who commented below. Although I was not able to respond to every comment, it looks like my first step is to go seek legal advice. I'm in CA, which is a community state, so we will have to split our assets. I don't mind giving up half of the savings in our property, but I'd hate to give up my business. Also, my bigger concern is our child. It is very difficult. Until I take further actions, I will not confront her. I'm disgusted to sleep in the bed where she made love with another man. I'll just have to bear with it for now. I'm so tempted to go through her phone, but I'm really scared to see what I may see. I'll keep you posted. Update. First of all, thank you everyone for all your support and useful advice and resources. It's approaching 2 weeks since I caught her infidelity. The biggest decision I needed to make was whether to try to stay together or go on a divorce route. One thing that really shocked me was that I did not see any warnings to this. I always thought we had a good, happy family. I decided to lean towards keeping our marriage, or at least try to. I thought I would regret less if I divorced later after trying. This would be a very difficult burden to live with, but at least I would try. I did consult with several attorneys. Some of them had free initial consulting and some charged upfront. One challenge was to find a way to make the payments as we share all of our finances, and I did not have a payment method where she would not know or find out soon enough. Some takeaways from the consulting were: California being a community state, all of the assets we accumulated during our marriage should be split 50-50ths. We pretty much started our marriage from scratch, so that means everything we have now. However, we can make a settlement so I can keep all of my shares in my business, then I will have to give up most of the other assets. Also, she has been out of the workforce for 8 years, so there will be spousal support regardless of whether she opts to find work or not. She will probably not make much if she opts to work. Also, the child support. It sounded like the custody battle will be an uphill battle. The court will care about the best interest of the child, and our child is super attached to the mom since she's been a stay-at-home mom and they spent most of the time together. Also, California is a no-fault state, so infidelity goes out the window. One thing to note, the initial intake forms that attorneys require ask about my annual income. To me, that sounded like them asking me how much they can make from me. Also, they won't give me a clear answer until I hire them and pay a retention fee. Their reasoning is that every case and circumstance is different, so they need more details to work with. From the resources I read through, it said to gather as much evidence as possible, maybe hire a PI. Maybe the long game was the right way to go. One thing I really wanted to dig into was her phone, but I had no way to get into it. I tried, but the Face ID does not work when she's asleep. It has been a long week, and I could not sleep or work right, and it was too much to bear. I never, ever in my wildest dream thought I'd divorce. I grew very anxious and out of patience. Last Friday night, I waited for her to come out of the shower and told her I need to talk to her. She had no idea what was coming to her, and I asked her if she has something that I should know that she doesn't think that I know. She said no and why I'm asking. So I rephrased it and asked her if she has something to confess. Her face got red and she grabbed her phone and walked into the bathroom. I followed her, but she quickly went in and locked the door. I banged on the door, asked her to come out because we need to talk, but she started getting irritated and turned on the hairdryer. We kept yelling back and forth while she was drying her hair. This went on for a while, and it took me a while to realize that it's easy to unlock the bathroom door from outside. I unlocked it using a small screwdriver, and she was sitting on the toilet with her phone. I tried to grab her phone, but she held on to it tight and wasn't about to give up easily. I told her why she's doing this to me, and she's still telling me, "Do what?" I dragged her out of the bathroom and told her we need to talk. I told her to tell me everything I need to know that might jeopardize our marriage. At this time, her face got really red and she said she doesn't have anything to say. I actually had another plan to press her and lead her to confess, but for some reason I went straight to the recording. And for the first time since we were together, we had some physical altercation. She jumped on me to take away the tablet. She was hysterical and I could see her using all of her force to take it away from me. I just held it away from her with one hand, and I really had no intention of keeping it away from her and didn't really want to hear what was going on for too long. So she took it away from me fairly easily, and she slammed it on the table to break it. I told her to explain that and she said, "You can't do this," and stormed into the bedroom crying. I asked her who it was and how long has this been going on. She kept sobbing and did not say a word. I told her whoever he is, she can go live with him and I will start new too. And she kept saying no, and that's not how it is. It was getting late at night. I know she's not sleeping and I can't sleep, but she won't talk. It was after 2 a.m. I was finally able to make her talk, and now she's playing the victim card. She said I showed no affection and love for her and said our marriage/relationship is hollow. What? I've been working my ass off so she doesn't have to work. I've been buying her what she needs, go on a family vacation once or twice a year. I've been good to her parents. What else does she want from me? All she was saying was the things she did to me and how raising a child/full-time housewife is also a full-time job and what I did not do to her. It left me really speechless how selfish her thoughts were. As for who this guy was, he's a friend from the area we were before we moved. She didn't say how they met. I told her if she wants to keep our marriage, I need to talk to him, but she said she will end the relationship herself, but this is a big no to me. I need to talk to him and sort things out. She said she will let me know. Also, she said it's been only recent when they started meeting, probably BS. I asked her about the funeral and bridal shower, but she said I can check with her friends on those, but I think it would be too late to check on those now if she already talked to her friends to lie for her. I pressed a lot of things to her, but I feel like I did not get much clear responses from her. I spent the night without much sleep, maybe I did for minutes here and there. It wasn't until that morning she apologized. She was sobbing and telling me how she's ashamed of what happened and what terrible things she did and how she never meant to be in that position. How she loves me and our child and we need therapy to stay together. I can't really tell if she's being truthful or just trying to get away with it for the time being. Yesterday was a difficult day for both of us. I got the AP's number and I called him, but he did not answer. I left him a short voicemail and texted him that I need to talk. And later he texted me that he thought our marriage was falling apart. I called him right after I got the text and he didn't answer. So I asked her what she told the AP about our marriage and if she told him our marriage is falling apart. And she says she never said that. A lot more happened than what I wrote here, but I'll stop here for now and update more later. At the end, I concluded that I want to try to keep our marriage if possible, but I'm hating my life now. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Husband quits his job to start a new business but just lazed around all day. When I filed for divorce, he turned my own parents against me and stole $25,000 from them. So, I am in a bit of trouble with my parents right now, and they are blaming me for everything that has happened. But I really just don't understand why they are doing that. This all started during my divorce a couple of weeks ago. Gary, 29M, my husband, and I, 33F, got married 2 years ago. We had been together for almost 3 years before that, and I thought that he was my soulmate. That is literally how sure I was of him. He and I had met at a bar and he was the one who asked me out. He was a nice guy, sweet, and everything. He was also pretty good looking and I fell for him. I fell hard. He was working a corporate job at the time, your typical 9 to 5, and he would constantly tell me that he was not happy about it. He said that he wanted to start his own event management business, and for that, he needed capital and support. Apparently, his parents were not very keen on the idea of him starting his own business because they thought that it was too much of a responsibility to take on by himself, and he was much better off working where he was. I'm a high school history teacher by profession, and so I did not exactly have the kind of money that he needed to start his own business. But I told him that whenever he wanted to quit his job and start working for himself, I would always be there to support him. That was a huge mistake because about 3 weeks after we got married, he came up to me and told me that he had quit his job. No prior discussion. I was obviously kind of put off by that because we had to take a lot of things into consideration at that point in time. We had been living together before that for almost a year, but marriage was a different ball game. I couldn't even say anything to him with regards to his decision to quit his job, since I was the one who had told him that I would stand by him any time that he wanted to start working on his business. We had bought a new house together, and we still hadn't finished paying for it, which was the biggest of my worries at the time. So when he told me that he had quit his job, that was my first question to him. What were we going to do about the house? Since I would definitely not be able to handle all the bills and also pay off the cost of the house on my salary alone. It was very unlikely that he would be able to contribute since he had quit his job and did not have another lined up. Even if he started his business that day itself, it would still take a couple of months for him to start making money off of it, and until then, he would have to rely on his savings. But even if that would prevent him from investing in his business, it was a very difficult situation. I would only be able to take care of the bills with great difficulty, and we would really have to start living frugally because when he quit his job, he did not even have a business plan. It was already really risky, and on top of that, he did not have any idea how to go about the whole thing. He just made the decision and sent his resignation in the heat of the moment one day. I tried not to fight with him over this and be supportive of him, but it was very difficult because the choice that he had made did not seem to be a very well-informed one, and it was clearly not something that he had thought through. I was very worried, but he kept telling me that he would look for a way to fix things, which did not help, but at least it gave me a sense of relief because I knew that whatever it was, I could get through it with him. This was just 3 weeks into our marriage, so we were still in our honeymoon phase, which explains why I was being so stupid. I was really ready to believe that I could get through everything just because he was with me. Love solves everything was basically my state of mind, or maybe it was just something that I told myself to prevent myself from having a complete nervous breakdown because I was so stressed out. The issue with the house was solved relatively quickly, even though it came at the cost of having a relationship with my in-laws. After Gary quit his job, the next step was to tell our families about it because we needed their help and support to get through the next couple of months, and the support was going to be both moral and financial. My parents were pretty cool with it and said that they would try to help me out with money whenever I needed it. Both my parents are dentists, so money is not a problem for them. However, my in-laws were not happy about what Gary had done. The day that we went over to their house to tell them that he had quit his job and was going to start a business of his own, they got into a huge fight. His father was a lawyer, and his mom was a moderately successful artist, so they were also reasonably well off, but they believed that Gary was being hasty and did not support his decision. For them, it was not a financial issue, but it seemed to me that they just did not have faith in him. Right now, I can see why, but at that time, I felt like they were being really hard on him. They were pissed, and rightfully so, since the company that he had been working for belonged to a friend of my father-in-law, and he was the one who got him the job there in the first place. He was upset because he thought that Gary was being irresponsible and also believed that he should have saved some more money before he quit. And I agreed with it, but I didn't say it at the time because I wanted to take my husband's side. Anyway, their whole fight was based on the fact that he had quit his job without any notice, and that was really insulting for him and his friends. Since he got the job as a favor to his father, he wasn't exactly qualified for it because it was an upper management position, and he did not have the kind of experience that it required. But he still got the job because of his connections, so for his age, he was doing exceptionally well, and he had thrown all of it away without a second thought. I can kind of see why his father was pissed off at him, but at the time, even Gary had a point. He said that he wanted to start a business of his own, and that had always been the goal. However, the job that he had kept him so busy that he barely had any time to work on his ideas, and so he had to quit to get ahead. And he did not see anything wrong with it because it was all business. It was not personal, and it was not his fault that they were mixing the two. Both of them had pretty strong arguments, so I didn't say anything, but I knew that I had to support my husband no matter what. So after we left that day, I knew that I could not change his mind, so the best thing to do in this situation would be to support him in his dreams and have faith in him because I thought that it would help him. After that fight with his parents, they pretty much stopped speaking to him because they believed that he did not value them and their opinions, which is why he just always did whatever he wanted to and expected them to support him even if they did not agree with what he was doing. They believed that he was very self-centered and everything had to be about him. Even after he got married, he did not change, and he didn't even think about the kind of pressure that he would be putting me under by quitting his job. His parents were actually the only people who were sympathetic to me and tried to think about my point of view at the time instead of just him. So, a couple of days after that fight, they reached out to me and told me that they were going to pay off the cost of the house so that I would not have to worry about it. They knew that this was the biggest of my concerns at the time, and they were willing to help us out, most specifically help me out. During that conversation, they told me that they knew that Gary had been put in a very difficult spot, and I wanted to support him, but I also had to be practical and think about the real-life consequences of what he was doing because I knew that he did not have a business plan. He did not have any investors. He did not even have any friends who were going to join him, so he had to start from scratch, and all his time, money, and resources were going to go into building his business. It was very unlikely that he would be able to cover the cost of living since he did not have enough money saved to make a decision like the one that he had made, and I did not earn enough to support him. So they wanted to help me and pay off the cost of the house. And I was genuinely more than happy to accept their help because I did not have any shame in admitting that I needed the help, and I could really do with the money. So I let his parents pay for the house, even though he was not happy about it, and he did not even hide it. He tried his best to convince me not to take their help, but I was not going to be an idiot. I told him that this was the only way that we would be able to get through the next couple of months, and that we had to accept their help whether we liked it or not because he had quit his job and had put me in an impossible position by doing so. And now, if his parents wanted to help us, then I had every right to accept that help because he did not consult me before quitting his job, so I did not have to consult him before doing this. I thought I was being more than fair, and after a while, he decided not to argue with me because I had made it very clear that this was my final decision, and I was not going to entertain any more arguments about it. I did not have any idea how that was going to backfire because I really did not have any time to worry about any of that. I got so busy after that. Gary started working on a business model, and I had to go out to work every day because now the pressure of earning more was on me. When both of us were earning, at the time that both of us were earning, we used to split everything equally between us because I did not want to rely on a man, even if it was my own boyfriend or husband. That was something that was very important to me, and it was non-negotiable. I was well aware of the fact that he made almost twice the amount that I earned, but I did not care because I wanted the satisfaction of knowing that I was paying for myself and I was not a burden on him. He also never offered to contribute more instead of me. I'm not complaining, but I just thought that I would mention it since we were talking about this. But after he quit his job, I had to work twice as hard, and I even took up a tutoring job to make some extra cash on the side so that I would not have to rely on my parents or ask somebody else for money. I wanted to be able to do it all on my own because even the thought of having to ask somebody for money made me uneasy. So I did my best to keep everything running, but I had this feeling that he was not doing the same. Every time that I would come back home from school and get ready to conduct online classes for my tutoring job, I would only see him either scrolling on his phone or watching something on TV. Earlier, I would just assume that maybe he got his work done when I was at school, but months passed and there was no progress. So I started to suspect that maybe he was not doing anything at home and just lazing around while I worked as hard as I could to bring home some money so that we would not have to rely on anybody else. I was honestly very unhappy about the way things were going, but I never said anything for the first couple of months because I knew that he needed somebody to have faith in him, and I wanted to be that person for him. But then, there is only so much one can do without seeing any results, and I started getting really agitated after one point in time because he kept telling me that he was getting ahead, but he still did not have any investors, and he didn't have anything to show for what he was doing at home all day. On the weekends, I could not observe what he was doing because he told me that the weekends were his days off, and I couldn't even question it because any time that I tried to talk to him about the progress that he had made so far, he would get really upset and accuse me of trying to rush him and acting just like his parents. I thought that it was very unfair, and I was getting really frustrated. So I decided that I would spy on him one day because that was the only way that I could get to the bottom of this and figure out why he was not an established businessman yet. So a couple of weeks ago, before I filed for the divorce, I decided to act like I was leaving for work, but then I didn't go anywhere and just lurked around the house to see what he would do. To my surprise, as soon as I had walked out of the door, he tossed his laptop aside and laid down on the couch with his phone. I was outside the house and peeking in through the living room windows like a thief, but I was crouched in such a position that he could not see me. However, I could see everything that he was doing, and I thought that maybe he would be on his phone for a little while and then get back to work. But I think I must have been sitting on the ground outside our house observing him, and he did not move a muscle for almost an hour. Now, before anybody comes at me saying that I could have installed cameras and stuff, I did not want to do any of that because it was a lot of effort, and I already had some sort of idea that he was not actually doing anything while I was not at home. So I was not going to waste my time, energy, and money trying to install cameras secretly and stuff when I already knew the truth. I just had to see it with my own two eyes to be able to prove it. As soon as almost 45 minutes had elapsed, and I had been sitting there watching him do nothing, I decided that I had seen enough, and I went in to confront him. I was furious, and I was also in a lot of pain from sitting in an awkward position for that amount of time. So as soon as I was in there, I walked up to him, and in a fit of anger, I snatched his phone and smashed it to the ground. I should not have done that, but I was just so angry that I couldn't help it, and I had to let it out somehow, so that's what I did. He was too shocked to say anything, and after I had thrown his phone, I started yelling at him and really let everything out of my system because I was so frustrated that he was doing this to me for months without any remorse. Just to remind you guys, I had been working 2 jobs to be able to sustain our lifestyle without having to borrow money, and here he was promising me that he was getting ahead and making progress, but it was all rubbish because he was just doing nothing sitting at home. The least he could have done was at least do the household chores, but he didn't even do that, and the responsibility of keeping the house clean and stuff also came to me. I don't think I can explain in words how angry I was feeling at that moment. All the anger and resentment bubbled up to the surface, and I just couldn't stop screaming at him until I had let it all out. After I was done talking, he had the audacity to ask me if I had been spying on him and told me that it was a violation of his privacy, just to show how much I did not trust him. Then he tried to lie to me again and said that he was just taking a much-needed day off from work. And so I told him that if this was one day off from work, and I had caught him on that day, then surely he would have something to show for all the other times that he had been working. And I demanded that he show me at least something. And then he started fumbling, so I knew that he had been lying. I told him to get out because I didn't even want to see him, and he started coming up with excuses for his behavior, saying that he was just really struggling with work and so he had been trying to relax a little, hoping that it would help him recoup. But honestly, I did not care about his struggles at the time because he had not cared about mine, and I was just so pissed off that I didn't even want to speak to him. After that fight, he left to live with his friend, and I stayed and filed for a divorce the very next day. And I think that was the point where everything started going wrong because he did not take my decision well and started spreading very nasty rumors about me. He started telling people that the reason I did not want to be with him anymore was because I was a gold digger, and as soon as I had realized that he did not have money anymore, I was out. Apparently, I had only married him when he was working in a good position, but when he quit that job, I was not happy about it and did not want to support him, which was obviously untrue. And yet people chose to believe it, showing me their true colors. And the only reason that I had stayed with him after he quit his job was because I was hoping that I would stand to gain a lot from when he actually started his business, but he was not able to do so because I made him pay all the bills even though he had no source of money and was essentially unemployed. He was spreading all these lies about me, and people were actually buying it. I couldn't even prove that he would sit at home and do nothing all day because I didn't record it, and I kind of regret it now, but at the time it didn't seem that important. And I was obviously not going to post or send people proof of the fact that I was paying all the bills because that was overkill. However, the worst part was that a couple of weeks ago, my parents contacted me and told me that they were very disappointed in me because they had not expected such things from me. I had told them about the divorce before, and at the time they had believed me, but after listening to Gary, they had chosen to believe him instead of me, their own daughter. I was dumbstruck by the way they had just decided to flip over to the other side, and I was so hurt that I didn't even bother to try and fix my relationship. The second that they told me that they were disappointed in me and were believing him over me, I was done with them because I had nothing more to say. I learned from a couple of people that they had even gone to the extent of letting him live with them because they did not think it was appropriate for him to live with his friend when, according to them, it was my fault that he was suffering like this. I cut them out of my life after that because they had really let me down. I always knew that they had a soft corner for Gary because he was the son that they never had, but this was taking things way too far, and I couldn't believe it. I had half a mind to be really petty and get back in touch with my in-laws, but that would just be childish and unnecessary trouble for all of us, so I didn't do that. But I stopped speaking to my parents, and I decided that the most appropriate punishment for them would be to let them live with Gary and find out for themselves exactly why I had filed for a divorce from the guy. And I was pretty sure that he would show his true colors in no time. And I was right. A couple of days ago, I received a call from my mother, and she was hysterical. She was crying like somebody had died, and I could hear my father screaming in the background. I waited for them to calm down so they could tell me exactly what the problem was because they had called me after a really long time, and I was sure that something had gone wrong because of the way that they were acting. So, about 3 minutes into the phone call, my mother finally stopped crying and told me that Gary had made a fool out of them and had stolen $25,000 from them and made a run for it. And now they could not track him down, and there was no way to contact him because he had blocked them in every possible way. I couldn't even fathom how that could happen, so I told them to tell me the entire story because nothing made sense, and that kind of money was a huge amount, so it was crazy that he had even been able to steal that because as far as I knew, he was not technically proficient enough to do it digitally. So it must have been a cash transaction, and I don't know why my parents would have that kind of cash just lying around in the house for him to get his hands on. So then my father told me that about a week ago, Gary had requested them to let him borrow some money that he would return within a month because he needed to clear some debts, and it was sort of an emergency. And they gave him the money because they wanted to compensate for everything that I was putting him through. We were going through a divorce and he had to pay for a lawyer as well, and he was losing out on a lot of money for that, so my parents felt obliged to make up for it and they gave him the money. I really can't imagine how two grown-up people could be so stupid, but yeah, that's how he got the money. And he left in the middle of the night without any explanation, and even after that, my parents were still holding out hope that he would contact them, but it started seeming less and less likely after he blocked them. When they tried to reach out to him about when he would be back, they told me that he was nowhere to be found, and I was the only person who could help them because they knew that I was going to meet him soon enough. I didn't know what to say to them because this was their own fault, and I couldn't do anything to help it. I knew that I would be meeting him this week for our mediation sessions, but I was not going to talk to him about this because technically, it was not even stealing if you consider the fact that they had willingly given him the money to help him out, and he had just chosen to run away with it. They did not even have any contract that said that he was obliged to return the money to them, so legally they could not claim anything, and the money was gone. It was their own stupidity that had led them here, and I was not going to waste my time trying to fix their mistakes. So I told them that tough luck. But this situation cannot be helped, and they just had to deal with the fact that it was gone. And then they started getting mad at me and told me that this was my fault for not warning them about Gary because clearly he had been lying about everything, and my version was what was real. I was so annoyed that I hung up without entertaining more of that conversation because it is so stupid to imply that I should have warned them when in reality, they were the ones who shouldn't even have doubted me in the first place because I am literally their daughter, and I don't know why they would ever choose to believe my soon-to-be ex-husband over me under any circumstances. They have been texting me every day since then and telling me that I need to fix this somehow. And I don't even know how I'm going to do that because it's not like Gary, and I even speak to each other outside of our meetings with our mediator. I did contact him yesterday to ask him why he would do this thing because it was so unethical and immoral. Felt out of character even for him. And he told me that I had taken money from his parents for the house so I could treat this as payback, which doesn't even make sense because both of us lived in that house, but that money was just for him. So I gave up trying to talk to him because he would do anything it took to make me look bad. I feel like a horrible daughter, but I don't know what to do anymore. IDA for not trying to talk to my parents after they chose to believe my soon-to-be ex-husband's side of the story over mine? Update 1. Hi everybody, after going through the comments on my original post, I have decided to block my parents for the time being because every text that I receive from them makes me feel very guilty, and I know that I shouldn't feel that way because they did this to themselves and I was not responsible for it. But I am a human being, and I still do feel things even though I'm not supposed to, so I think it's best to just block them right now and deal with it later when I have the bandwidth to manage the situation. Thank you so much for all the advice and support. I really needed that to get through this week because I had to meet that jackal of a man yesterday, and it was all I could do not to punch him in the face because he looked so smug and pleased with himself. I don't even know how he lives with himself after the things that he has done or how I even fell in love with this guy ever. Update 2. Hello people, a lot of time has passed, and I am no longer in touch with my parents. Even though I tried to fix my relationship with them and talked to them a couple of weeks after I had blocked them, they were not open to it and told me to get lost when I visited them. So that was pretty heartbreaking for me, but that's how it is, and I can't help it. At least things are better for me on the divorce front because I got to keep the house and everything else, and I'm just waiting for the divorce to be officially finalized so that I can breathe. Things have been very difficult for me for the past few months, and I can't wait for this to be over. Update 3. I'm officially a divorced woman now, and I could not be happier about it. I decided to sell the house and move into a smaller apartment so it would be easier for me. I am no longer in touch with anybody from my old life, be it Gary or my parents or even any of the common friends that we had, because they showed me that I could not trust them since they believed the rumors that Gary had been spreading about me. So now it's just me and a couple of people that I can actually trust and rely on, and you know what? I'm happy with this life because it's much better than before now. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Found out my manipulative and abusive mom was using my identity for loans while stalking me after she made my life hell. So I worked with my sister to take her down in court. Living with my mom was an absolute nightmare. She has always been toxic and manipulative, but things got really bad after my dad left when I was around 12. From then on, I was her emotional punching bag. She controlled everything about me. Who I could hang out with, what I wore, and even monitored my texts. If I ever did anything she didn't like, she'd scream at me for hours and sometimes even throw things around the house just to make a point. She never saw me as her kid. She just saw someone she could control. Once I missed curfew by 10 minutes and she made me sleep on the porch in the middle of winter. Another time, she locked up all the food in the kitchen because I didn't fold the laundry properly. Whenever I pushed back, she'd say that I was just like my deadbeat father and would end up a failure. So yeah, things were bad, and it only got worse the older I got. I knew I had to leave, but she made it hard. She sabotaged every job I tried to get. She'd call the employers and badmouth me. She also kept saying that I'd be nothing without her. Luckily, I still managed to find a job at our local diner. I saved every penny I could, worked multiple, often late shifts, and finally moved out 2 months ago. I found a small apartment in a different area of our city and blocked her on everything. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. But of course, my mom didn't take that well. She left me dozens of nasty voicemails from different numbers. She called me selfish and ungrateful for abandoning her. When I didn't respond, she ramped it up. She started contacting our extended family to guilt-trip me. A lot of them contacted me to tell me that I abandoned her in her time of need. First, I ignored it. I thought that if I just stayed no contact long enough, she'd eventually move on. I admit it was naive of me to think. At first, it was small things that threw me off. The packages I ordered never arrived, even though the tracking said they'd been delivered. Then my mailbox started getting tampered with. Important letters, including a job offer, just vanished. I figured it was bad luck or someone stealing mail in the building, but it kept happening. Then one day, a late notice arrived from an electric company I never signed up with for an address back where I used to live with my mom. That's when I started to panic. I had never lived at that address, but the bill was under my name. I had no idea what to do. A few days later, I started getting random texts from unknown numbers saying things like, "Why did you get back home after 10 p.m. on Monday?" Or, "Why were you at the pharmacy on Tuesday?" Which was super creepy because how did this person know where I was and what I was doing? I tried to brush it off as spam or coincidence, but my anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. It was messing with my head. I started checking every lock twice. I was genuinely terrified to leave my apartment. Then, a few weeks later, things got worse. The cops showed up at my door one evening and told me that I was being investigated for shoplifting. Apparently, someone matching my description had been caught stealing from a nearby store. I tried to stay calm and explain that I hadn't even left the house that day, but they didn't seem convinced. They said the store manager had given them my name and insisted I was the one who did it. I was terrified. Luckily, my apartment building has security cameras, so I gave the officers access to the footage, and it showed I never left that day. After reviewing the footage, they apologized and told me to reach out if I had any information on who it might have been. I knew then that this wasn't just a coincidence. Someone was trying to frame me, and that someone had to be my mom. She was the only person who looked like me and who I knew loved to shoplift. About 2 hours after the cops showed up at my door, I finally managed to convince myself to go tell the police about my hunch. I decided to speak to the same 2 officers that I met, and when I told them that I thought it was my mother who had set me up, they began digging into her, and wow, did they find so much. My mom had been showing up at multiple stores, buying items, and then returning them after swapping the real products for cheaper items inside the boxes. She apparently had a credit card in my name because she had access to my SSN and all my banking details for the longest time, and she used the credit card to commit her fraud. The officers said they had surveillance footage from the store they approached me about that showed her wearing a hat and a medical mask. It was easy to mistake her for me because we looked very similar, but it was still clearly her. By that point, I was too shaken up about the whole thing. So the officers escorted me back home and told me that they would reach out whenever they found new information on my mom. They wanted to build a solid case against her before charging her with anything. 2 days later, one of the officers called and told me my mother had also set up utilities in my name at her house because she probably wanted to rack up unpaid bills and tank my credit. That explains the electricity bill I got. Aside from that, they told me that my mother had also been making long posts that essentially were about how she sacrificed everything for her child who ended up turning against her. I honestly didn't know what to feel. My only comfort was that the officers promised that they'd open a formal investigation into her and that they would arrest her soon. But it only got worse for me. That same evening, after my call with the officer, I discovered the creepiest part. One of my neighbors mentioned that some guy had been asking around about me. He was asking about where I lived, what time I came home, if I had any visitors, etc. Turns out, my mom had hired a private investigator to stalk me. She was so obsessed with knowing every little detail of my life that she actually paid someone to track my movements. After asking around my workplace, I found out that the PI had even shown up outside my workplace one day, but I didn't notice because a coworker was walking me to my car at the time. Not to mention that also would explain the weird texts I had been getting. I was exhausted, paranoid, and scared all the time. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I needed some serious help. That's when I decided to call my aunt, my mom's estranged sister. I knew she was a lawyer, but I hadn't spoken to her in years because my mom had poisoned me against pretty much everyone in the family. My mom always said my aunt was greedy and cut from the same cloth as Dad. I wasn't sure if she'd help, but I was desperate. To my surprise, she was more than willing to take on my case pro bono. Turns out my mom had screwed her over too. After their parents died, my mom lied to her and told her that there was nothing left in the estate, when in reality she'd taken everything, including the sentimental items my aunt wanted. By the time my aunt found out, my mom had already sold the estate and moved somewhere else. My aunt had been waiting for an opportunity to get back at her ever since. Together, we filed for a restraining order and built a case against my mom for harassment, fraud, and identity theft. When my mom walked into the courtroom and saw her sister sitting at the lawyer's table, she went pale. I don't think I'll ever forget the look on her face. She had no idea I was in contact with my aunt, and the last person she wanted to face in court was the sister she had betrayed. My aunt was a beast in court. She knew exactly how to handle my mom, who tried every trick in the book to get the hearing postponed. She even tried to claim bias because her sister was my lawyer, but the judge shut her down every time. The hearing itself was a circus. My mom tried every excuse under the sun to excuse her actions. She claimed she was just helping me by using my name and that she needed to keep tabs on me for my own safety, and even that I had given her permission to use my identity. None of it stuck. There was just way too much evidence against her. There was security footage from the store, utility bills in my name, and the PI's report and testimony of what my mom had him do. At one point, she even tried to argue that I made her do all of this by going no contact. She said that I forced her to act that way because I abandoned her and that she was just trying to protect me by keeping tabs on me. The judge wasn't having any of it. Every time my mom tried to weasel her way out of responsibility, the judge shot her down. In the end, the court granted me a restraining order, and my mom was ordered to pay restitution for the damage she caused to my credit and finances. She stormed out of the courtroom in a rage, but not before screaming that I was an ungrateful child and that I would regret this. I was really happy with the results of that case. I finally felt safe and I was really grateful to my aunt for that. But then other extended family members started contacting me and telling me that I was wrong to take my own mother to court and drag her estranged sister into it. They've called me a disgrace in pretty much every way possible. I know that I did what was right for my mental health, but now I think I took it too far. Maybe I should have tried to talk to her or negotiated with her or something. I don't know, I'm just a huge mess right now. My emotions have been in overdrive for so long that I don't know what's right or wrong anymore. I could use any advice right now, but please be gentle with me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong for taking my mom to court and using her estranged sister as my lawyer? Update 1. Hey everyone. Thought I'd give you all an update since a lot has happened since the court hearing. This is coming a little over a month after everything went down, and spoiler alert, the drama didn't end in court. I've also read through a lot of the comments, and I just wanted to thank every one of you that commented. I've now learned about narcissism, the mental disorder, and I've done a lot of research into it. My mother lines up pretty well with the symptoms, and while I understand that my mom may not be in control of how her mind thinks, I still know that she can be held responsible for her actions. Now let's continue with the updates because I have a few of them to give. After the hearing, the first thing I did was cut off every relative who took my mom's side. A lot of them tried to guilt-trip me and said that I should forgive her because she's still my mom, but being related to someone doesn't mean you owe them forgiveness, especially not after everything my mother put me through. Some of these people hadn't lifted a finger to help me when she was making my life hell, but suddenly they had all these opinions about family loyalty. Yeah, no thanks. I blocked every single one of them. It wasn't even a hard decision, mostly because it was only a handful of them, but I've learned the hard way that keeping toxic people in your life only brings more chaos. But even though I went no contact with those flying monkeys, the chaos didn't stop there. About 2 weeks after the hearing, I found out that my mom was trying to sue the private investigator who had talked to my neighbors. Can you believe that? Apparently, she was mad that he talked to my neighbors during his investigation and claimed he broke confidentiality. I don't even know why she thought that was a good idea, but she went ahead with it anyway. Unfortunately for her, the PI was a pro. He kept all the receipts, which included texts, emails, and even a written contract with my mom where she explicitly gave him permission to ask around about me. From what I heard, the PI wasn't having any of it. He shut down her nonsense immediately and even reported her behavior to the authorities handling the fraud investigation. And speaking of the fraud investigation, things got wild. I got a call from the investigator assigned to my case, the same person I had worked with before when I reported my mom's shenanigans. They told me they had found more scams she had pulled in my name. Apparently, she had been using my identity for years without me knowing. I thought the utilities and shoplifting stuff were bad, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. She had applied for multiple small loans under my name, but nothing huge enough to get flagged right away. They were just small amounts here and there. On top of that, she subscribed to random services and even tried to lease an apartment using my identity. I had no clue any of this was going on because the bills and letters were sent to her address. It's terrifying to think how far she was willing to go just to mess with me. The investigator told me that based on what they uncovered, my mom could be facing criminal charges if the fraud department decides to pursue the case. Right now, they're still reviewing everything, but it's looking pretty serious. I can't say I'm surprised. She's been pulling these kinds of schemes for as long as I can remember, but knowing she might finally face consequences, that feels good, like really good. Then came the most infuriating part. I found out from a few extended family members, people that I barely talked to, that my mom had been spreading lies about me. She told them I was on drugs and out of control, and that's why the cops showed up at my apartment. According to her, she was trying to help me clean up my life because I was supposedly too far gone to help myself. She lied about the whole thing to make herself look like the hero and the poor mother who was doing everything she could for her wayward child. Hearing that honestly made my blood boil, not just because it was a total lie, but because it showed how deeply manipulative she is. She didn't just try to ruin my life with fraud and stalking. She was also actively working to destroy my reputation. Some of the people she spread these lies to are distant relatives, but she also reached out to old family friends who hadn't seen me in years. I guess she thought that if she could convince enough people I was a mess, it would justify all the things she did to me. It was tough hearing about these lies. Even though I knew they weren't true, I felt so sad and exhausted. I've spent so much of my life dealing with her manipulation, and it's frustrating to see her try to drag me down even when I've done everything I can to move on. But I've come to realize that people like her don't change. They'll always find new ways to play the victim and blame others. Still, I'm not letting her win. I've taken all the necessary steps to protect myself. I've placed more fraud alerts, worked with the investigator to clean up the mess she made with my credit, and stayed firm on my no-contact boundary. I also made sure to warn the relatives and friends she contacted that everything she said was a lie. Thankfully, the ones who reached out to me believed me, especially after I explained what happened in court. Besides, most of them only reached out to me to inform me that my mom was going around sounding like a lunatic. I guess it was also refreshing to see a bunch of other people see my mom for what she truly was. At the end of the day, I feel more at peace knowing that I'm not dealing with this alone. The legal system is finally on my side, and my mom can't manipulate her way out of this one. I'm not sure what's going to happen next with the investigation or whether she'll face jail time, but I'll be sure to update you guys. Stay tuned. Update 2. Hey everyone, I wasn't planning on posting again so soon, but things have gone even more off the rails since my last update. Honestly, I thought my mom's antics would die down after the court hearing, but nope. She's only gotten more unhinged, and this time she went after my job. So not long after I cut contact with the relatives who took her side, I guess mom realized she didn't have anybody left to do her dirty work. That's when she decided to pull a stunt directly targeting my livelihood. She sent a letter to my workplace that was full of lies about how I'm mentally unstable and dangerous to customers. The letter basically made me look like I was a threat and said that if they didn't fire me, I'd cause some kind of scene. She even added fake stories to try and make it seem like I was reckless at work. Luckily, my boss isn't an idiot. She'd known me for a long time and knew the letter was bogus. She called me into her office, showed me the letter, and told me not to worry about it. Honestly, it still stung to see the things that mom wrote about me, even though I knew they were all lies. My boss was super cool about it. She immediately got security involved and made sure that my mom was blacklisted from the building. Now if mom even thinks about showing up, security will handle her before she gets anywhere near me. After that, I was just emotionally drained. I mean, at that point, it was clear that mom was determined to destroy me however she could. She couldn't manipulate me anymore, so she decided to attack my reputation and career. I kept telling myself that it wasn't going to work, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. I ended up calling my aunt, the one who represented me during the court case, and she gave me some much-needed support. She told me not to engage with mom, no matter how hard she tried to drag me down. She reminded me that my mom could not physically reach me anymore because of my restraining order. She assured me that if my mom pulled any more stunts, she would make sure that my mom was charged with violating my restraining order. And then, about a week after the letter incident, I found out that mom had been arrested. Apparently, the fraud investigation I mentioned in my last update caught up to her, and one of the stores she scammed decided to press charges. From what I was told, mom had been using stolen credit cards to make online purchases, and one of the stores flagged her account. When the investigation linked everything back to her, the police moved in, and she was arrested for theft and fraud. She's currently being held until her trial, and from what my aunt said, the charges are serious enough that she could be looking at actual jail time. There's a laundry list of charges like identity theft, credit card fraud, and theft by deception, just to name a few. It's all finally catching up with her. My aunt, aka my awesome lawyer, was the one who found out about the arrest first, and when she did, my mom tried to pull another stunt. My mom somehow got a hold of a phone while in holding and called my aunt. She begged my aunt to represent her. Can you imagine the audacity? After everything mom put my aunt through, she had the audacity to ask my aunt to help her. According to my aunt, when mom called, she didn't even apologize. Instead, she tried to manipulate her and said that family should always have each other's backs. My aunt shut that down real fast. She told mom that if she wanted legal advice, she'd have to find someone else because there was no way she'd defend someone who tried to ruin her and her niece's life. Apparently, mom started screaming at her over the phone. She called her a traitor and threatened to ruin her too. My aunt told my mom to tread lightly because my aunt was a well-reputed lawyer, and if my aunt wanted, she could very easily help escalate the charges my mom was facing. My mom was shocked to hear that and quickly hung up the phone. When my aunt told me about this, I didn't know what to say. I couldn't believe that even after everything, my mom still thought she could guilt someone into saving her. And not just anyone. It was the only other close family she had whom she had betrayed in the worst way possible. It was like she had learned absolutely nothing. Hearing about that phone call was both satisfying and sad. It confirmed what I already knew, that my mom will always choose manipulation over accountability, but it also made me realize just how far gone she really is. As for how I feel about her getting arrested, it's complicated. Part of me feels guilty for being relieved. She's still my mom, and knowing that she's sitting in a holding cell waiting for trial is hard to process. But at the same time, it's not like I didn't see this coming. She's been getting away with this kind of behavior for years, and it was only a matter of time before it caught up to her. Honestly, it feels like karma finally did its job. If anything else happens, I'll be sure to update you all. Thanks again to everyone who's been following this wild ride and offering support. You have no idea how much it means to me. Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I figured I'd give you all some closure. A lot has happened, and for the first time in a long while, I can finally say that it's over. So here's where things stand. My mom pleaded guilty to several misdemeanor fraud charges. Honestly, I was surprised it all wrapped up so quickly. Turns out her lawyer worked out a plea deal because there was just too much evidence stacked against her. There were paper trails, surveillance footage, and victims willing to testify. If she tried to fight it, she would have been facing way more serious charges. The judge gave her 2 years of probation instead of jail time, along with an order to pay restitution for everything she stole. The restitution amount is no joke. She owes a ton of money. Every loan she took out in my name, every fraudulent transaction she made, and the damages from the theft charges have all added up to a pretty big figure. Knowing her, she'll probably never pay it all back. But honestly, that's not my problem anymore. I thought I'd feel bad for her, or at least conflicted, but I don't. I feel free. For the first time in my life, I'm not constantly waiting for the next nightmare to unfold. I don't have to worry about her manipulating anyone around me or dragging me back into her mess. The restraining order is still in place, and I've officially changed my last name to make sure she can't find me again. It felt weird at first, but now it feels like a fresh start, like I finally get to live my life on my own terms. As for how this whole mess affected my mom, well, let's just say karma hit her hard. A lot of people in her social circle have cut her off. Word about the fraud charges spread quickly, especially since some of the people she scammed were within that circle. Her reputation took a nosedive, and from what I've heard, she's been struggling to keep a job. I know some mutual relatives feel sorry for her, but I'm not one of them. She built this house of cards, and now it's all falling apart. But a couple of weeks ago, my aunt, the lawyer who helped me get the restraining order, reached out. She told me that my mom had been texting her, even though my aunt made it very clear after that she wanted nothing to do with her. Apparently, Mom was sending these long-winded messages about how my aunt betrayed her by supporting me. She blamed my aunt for where she was now. She called my aunt selfish and a backstabber. My aunt was obviously not going to take that sitting down. She's a lawyer. My aunt did not hold back from absolutely roasting my mother to bits. She brought up how my mom was the one who stole her inheritance when my mom knew that my aunt was drowning in student debt and was on the brink of homelessness. She told my mom that my mom was the backstabber. My aunt asked my mom if what my mom did to her was something that family did to each other because my mom could not let go of the family first reasoning. My mom apparently didn't have much to say after that. She never once apologized, even when my aunt pointed out all the mistakes my mom made and the various ways she hurt my aunt. I mean, neither my aunt nor I was surprised. My mom has never once apologized for anything she's ever said or done. I knew this wouldn't have led to anything more, but that didn't stop my mom from essentially harassing my aunt. She kept calling and texting my aunt with various insults. Eventually, my aunt had enough and told my mom that if she continued to harass her, she would file a lawsuit against my mom for stealing her inheritance. That shut her up very fast. As for me, I'm in a much better place. I've started therapy to work through everything she put me through. It's not easy, but for the first time, I feel like I'm finally moving forward. I won't lie, there are still moments where I catch myself looking over my shoulder because I can't help but wonder if my mom will try to worm her way back into my life. But those moments are happening less and less. I know I'm not the same person I was when this all started. I can't thank you all enough for the support and advice you gave me throughout this nightmare. There were moments when I thought I'd cave, but reading your comments gave me the strength to keep going. It's wild how much strangers on the internet can feel like a lifeline when you need it most. So yeah, it's over. I'm finally free. Thank you. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Parents mocked me at my brother's wedding, but they didn't know I actually own the company catering to their event. So, I had my staff pack everything and leave 300 guests without food. I've always believed in building something for myself, and that is exactly what I did when I started my catering business. What began as a modest food truck back in my college days gradually evolved into a full-service catering company, now employing over 50 people and servicing high-end events all across the greater Chicago area. I've worked hard to get here. Sleepless nights, sacrifices, and relentless determination. Took me nearly a decade, but I've built something I'm proud of. This background is important to understand what happened last weekend at my younger brother, Mark's, wedding, which turned into an absolute disaster. To give some context, I haven't been on speaking terms with my family for nearly 6 years. My mom passed away when I was 14, and my dad remarried within a year to Jenny, my now stepmother. Jenny made it clear from day one that she wanted no reminder of my mother. My father, eager to move on, allowed her to push my mother's memory out of our lives, which created a lot of tension between us. My younger brother, Mark, who was only 10 at the time, became very close to Jenny, but I struggled to accept her sudden, controlling presence in our home. The distance between my father and me started then. The real breaking point came during my college years. While I was juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay for school, my father refused to offer me any financial help, claiming I needed to learn responsibility. Meanwhile, he was fully funding Mark's education at an expensive private university. The difference in how we were treated was impossible to ignore. Jenny, who had a condescending attitude toward me, never missed an opportunity to belittle my efforts. While I was trying to build my catering business, she often referred to it as playing with a food truck, while praising Mark's real career in finance. After college, I rarely contacted them. I would show up for holidays, but that was about it. The final straw came 6 years ago when I learned that my father and Jenny had sold our childhood home without informing me. I only found out after they had moved into a new place, and by then, all of my mother's remaining belongings, things I had wanted to keep, were gone. When I confronted my father about this, he told me I was being overly emotional and needed to move on with my life. That was the moment I decided to go no contact. Fast forward to last month. I unexpectedly received a formal invitation to Mark's wedding. Along with the invite was a handwritten note from him saying that he missed me and wanted to repair our relationship. After a lot of thought, I decided to give it a chance. Despite our family history, I figured it was worth attending. I even offered to provide the catering for the wedding at a significant discount as a gesture of goodwill, but Mark politely declined, saying they had already booked another company. I was a little hurt, but I shrugged it off. The wedding was held at a beautiful venue in Lake Forest, and I arrived cautiously optimistic. Mark seemed genuinely happy to see me, which was a relief, but Jenny's attitude hadn't changed. The moment she saw me, she made snide comments about my appearance and my catering business. I brushed it off and tried to enjoy the ceremony, which was undeniably beautiful. However, the family seating arrangement was telling. I was placed at a table far from my immediate family, alongside distant cousins I barely knew, which felt like a subtle reminder that I was still an outsider. Things took a nosedive during the reception. My father, clearly drunk, approached my table and started berating me out of nowhere. He accused me of showing up uninvited, despite the formal invitation I had in my pocket, and loudly claimed I was an embarrassment to the family. He said my presence was ruining Mark's big day. Before I could even respond, Jenny chimed in, asking with thinly veiled sarcasm how much I was earning playing restaurant owner these days. She even commented on my suit, implying I couldn't afford something as nice as what I was wearing. The sheer audacity of it was unbelievable. Instead of saying anything or reacting at all, I decided to leave quietly. I knew there was no point in engaging with them, especially with my father being drunk and Jenny clearly enjoying the opportunity to take jabs at me. I was walking toward my car when something caught my eye. The catering staff setting up for the main course. I recognized several of them immediately. These were people who worked for me. That's when it hit me. The catering company my business partner had hired for the wedding had recently been acquired by my company. The former owner had stayed on as a manager, so I hadn't been directly involved in the planning, but legally, the company and this event were now under my control. I called my operations manager just to confirm what I was already suspecting. Sure enough, this was our event. I thought back to what my father had said, how I was an embarrassment, how I was ruining the wedding just by being there. And that's when I made a decision. If my presence was so offensive to them, then surely they wouldn't want my company catering their event either. I instructed my staff to pack everything up and leave immediately. Within 15 minutes, 25 of my employees had loaded all the food, equipment, and supplies back into our trucks and were on their way out. Chaos erupted shortly after, with 300 guests left without their main course or dessert. People started to realize something was seriously wrong. My father tried to intervene, but there was nothing he could do. The contract they signed with the previous owner of the catering company included a clause that allowed us to terminate service if there was any hostile or discriminatory behavior toward our staff or ownership. And that's exactly what had happened. I left my business card with the venue manager and told her to have my father contact my lawyer if there were any disputes over payment. The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with messages from family members accusing me of being selfish and petty. Mark sent me a long text saying I had ruined his wedding and proved Jenny right about me all along. My father, unsurprisingly, threatened to sue me for breach of contract. I forwarded all of their communications to my lawyer and blocked their numbers. A couple of hours later, I started hearing from some guests who had attended the wedding. Surprisingly, several of them were on my side. They had witnessed the way my father and Jenny had treated me and said they were appalled by their behavior. One of Mark's friends, who had seen my catering company's work before, even reached out to apologize for how things had played out and said he was impressed with how quickly and professionally my team handled the situation. This support was unexpected, but it reminded me that not everyone in the family was blind to what had really happened. As the days passed, I found out that Mark's wedding had made the rounds in social circles, particularly how it ended. Apparently, word had spread among Mark's colleagues and friends about the drama that unfolded, and it wasn't long before Jenny's carefully curated image started to crack. Some mutual acquaintances even mentioned that Jenny had tried to downplay the whole incident, blaming me entirely for ruining the reception. However, the truth was already out, and no one was buying her version of events. The damage had been done. I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and honestly, I don't feel guilty. I didn't crash their wedding or make a scene. I was invited and treated with utter disrespect. They chose to humiliate me, and I exercised my legal right to terminate a service. It was nothing personal, just business. They didn't want me there, so they didn't get my services either. Simple as that. Still, I can't shake the feeling that I've somehow been drawn into a family drama that I had long hoped to leave behind. Now, I'm left wondering if I handled it the right way. Was it too much, or did they deserve the outcome they got for treating me the way they did? Either way, the situation has been weighing on me, so I'm turning to Reddit for some perspective. I want to hear if I was the a-hole or was I justified in my actions. Update 1. Thank you all for the overwhelming support. Honestly, I didn't expect this story to blow up the way it has, but I'm grateful for the outpouring of kind words and thoughtful responses. The amount of comments and messages I've received has been staggering, and while I've tried to respond to as many as possible, it's been overwhelming. I truly appreciate everyone's feedback, and many of your perspectives have given me new angles to consider in this whole ordeal. A lot of people have asked about the legal side of things and whether or not my father and Jenny are really planning to take action against me. The short answer, yes, they've threatened to sue, just as I suspected. Here's what has happened since my original post. Right after the wedding fiasco, I contacted my lawyer to get ahead of any potential legal trouble. We went over the contract between my catering company and the previous owner of the business, which was signed by either Mark or his wedding planner. The good news is that the contract is rock solid. It contains a clause that allows us to terminate services in cases where there's any hostile or discriminatory behavior directed at our staff or ownership. That clause was specifically added for situations like this, where things could get out of hand. To make sure we were fully prepared, I reached out to the venue manager who confirmed that their security cameras had captured everything. The footage clearly shows my father approaching me, and while the audio wasn't perfect, it picked up enough to verify that he was berating me. Jenny's snide remarks were also caught on camera, making it clear that their behavior was hostile enough to justify the decision to stop catering the event. With this evidence in hand, I felt confident that my legal standing was solid. A few days after the wedding, my lawyer sent a formal letter to my father's attorney, explaining the situation. We laid out the details, emphasizing that the contract allowed us to terminate services due to their hostile behavior. We even mentioned the video evidence and made it clear that we were more than willing to provide it if necessary. At first, I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, I underestimated how stubborn and vengeful Jenny could be. Yesterday, my father's lawyer sent a response demanding a full refund for the catering. They also threatened to sue for damages, claiming that by pulling the catering, I had ruined the wedding and caused irreparable harm. They were seeking compensation not only for the catering but also for the disruption it caused to the entire event. Naturally, I wasn't about to cave into their demands. I wasn't going to pay them anything, especially since they were the ones who had created this mess in the first place. After discussing things with my lawyer, we decided to offer a counter-proposal. We're willing to refund 50% of the deposit, but only under two conditions. First, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, which means they can't talk about the situation publicly or leave negative reviews online. Second, they have to sign a release of claims, which would prevent them from pursuing any further legal action against me or my company. We've sent the offer, and now we're just waiting for their response. Despite all this legal wrangling, Jenny has already tried to cause problems. The venue manager called me a few days ago to let me know that Jenny had been attempting to post negative reviews about my catering company online. In her reviews, she claimed that we had sabotaged the wedding and blown things out of proportion to make the family look bad. Thankfully, the venue manager was able to block her attempts, but it's still frustrating to deal with. My legal team is keeping a close eye on the situation, and if Jenny continues to spread false information, we'll treat it as defamation and escalate accordingly. Interestingly enough, the chaos of the wedding has led to some unexpected positives for my business. Several wedding guests have since reached out to compliment how my staff handled the situation and even expressed interest in hiring us for their own events. Some of them told me they were impressed by how quickly and professionally my team packed up and left. It's strange to think that a disaster like this could lead to new business opportunities, but that seems to be the silver lining in all this. As for my brother Mark, he still hasn't contacted me directly, but he did send a message through one of our mutual cousins. In the message, Mark admitted that he felt guilty for not standing up for me during the wedding. He said that he didn't want to cause problems with our father and Jenny, which is why he stayed silent when things got ugly. He apologized and asked if we could meet to talk things over. I have mixed feelings about this. Part of me wants to give him a chance to explain, but another part of me feels like it's too late for that. For now, I'm going to hold off on any meetings until the legal situation is fully resolved. On a personal level, I've been reflecting a lot on everything that's happened. In some ways, I feel vindicated for standing up for myself. My family had treated me like an outsider for years, and I finally drew a line in the sand. Legally and professionally, I know I made the right decisions, but emotionally, this whole situation has been draining. It's hard not to feel a sense of loss, even though I've been estranged from my father and Jenny for years. Mark's wedding was supposed to be a celebration, and instead, it's become a legal battle and a source of family drama that I never wanted. The weight of it all is starting to sink in. I'm left wondering what the long-term consequences will be for my relationships with the rest of my family. Will things ever get back to normal? Can I ever repair my relationship with Mark? Or is the damage too deep? I don't have answers to those questions yet, and it's going to take some time to figure it all out. For now, I'm focused on seeing how my father and Jenny respond to our offer. If they agree to the NDA and the release of claims, maybe we can all move on from this mess. If they refuse and decide to push forward with legal action, I'm prepared to defend myself and my company. No matter what happens, I'll make sure to update you all again. Thank you for all your support and encouragement. It means a lot to me, especially during this chaotic and stressful time. Update 2. Since my last update, things have only gotten messier, but at least the legal side is now behind me. Before diving into that, let me backtrack a little to fill you in on something I recently learned. One of my business associates, who had a working relationship with the wedding planner hired by Mark and Jenny, gave me some additional insights into what went down before the wedding. Apparently, the chaos didn't just start with my arrival. It had been brewing for weeks. According to my associate, Jenny had been a nightmare to deal with from the beginning. She insisted on making several last-minute changes to the flower arrangements, despite having already signed off on them. Not only that, but she went back and forth with the event planner over almost every detail. The wedding cake design was altered at least 3 times because Jenny couldn't make up her mind, and she even demanded a complete overhaul of the seating arrangement just days before the event. The event planner had to rearrange seating for over 300 guests more than once, which isn't just inconvenient, it's costly. On top of that, there was some serious tension between Jenny and the venue staff. Jenny apparently made several condescending remarks about their level of professionalism, complaining that they weren't up to the standard she expected for such an upscale wedding. This was ironic considering the staff were some of the best in the business and the venue was known for its top-notch service. Jenny also tried to get the band to play a different set list at the last minute, even though Mark and his fiancée had personally chosen all the songs months in advance. It was one of those classic situations where Jenny had her hands in everything, making the planning process a nightmare for everyone involved. My associate told me that there were some moments leading up to the wedding where it looked like the event planner was on the verge of quitting because of Jenny's constant meddling and impossible demands. But being the professional she is, the planner stuck it out despite the emotional toll Jenny's behavior was taking on the entire team. When my associate told me this, I couldn't help but feel a little vindicated. The stress and confusion I'd felt at the wedding reception were clearly just the tip of the iceberg compared to what the vendors had been dealing with in the weeks leading up to it. Now, back to the legal matters. Yesterday, my father's lawyer finally contacted us, and they've agreed to accept our settlement offer. After what I assume was a long discussion between my father, Jenny, and their legal team, they decided to take the partial refund and sign the non-disclosure agreement, NDA. This morning, they signed all the necessary documents and we processed the refund, 50% of their deposit, minus the costs already incurred for the food, staff, and travel. With that, the legal dispute has been resolved. The lawyer letter was formal, and they didn't bother to include any sort of apology or acknowledgement of what really happened, but I wasn't expecting one. The important thing is that they agreed to the settlement, and I won't have to worry about any further legal repercussions from them. However, while the legal matter may be over, the personal fallout is still ongoing, and it's only getting worse. One of the more disturbing developments is that Jenny has been actively trying to undermine my business since the wedding. She's been calling several of my employees, trying to fish for information about how my company operates. Thankfully, my staff are loyal and know better than to engage with her, especially considering the circumstances. We've instructed all employees to direct any and all communications from my family straight to our legal department. But it doesn't stop there. Jenny has also been reaching out to some of my business partners on LinkedIn, spreading false claims about my character and accusing me of ruining her son's wedding on purpose. It's one thing to be angry, but it's another to try to sabotage someone's livelihood. Jenny crossed a major line with these attempts to tarnish my reputation. As soon as we became aware of what she was doing, our lawyer sent her a cease and desist letter. We're taking this seriously because at this point, her actions are bordering on defamation. My legal team is ready to escalate if necessary, but I'm hoping the cease and desist will be enough to make her back off. Still, I wouldn't put it past Jenny to keep pushing, given her history of crossing boundaries. But perhaps the most surprising development came from my brother, Mark. I hadn't expected much from him after the wedding, but it seems the fallout from the incident has hit his own marriage as well. From what I've gathered through mutual acquaintances and a few cousins, Mark and his new wife have already had their first major fight over what happened at the wedding. Apparently, she was horrified by the way our father and Jenny treated me, and she confronted Mark about it after the wedding. She told Mark in no uncertain terms that he should have stood up for me and that allowing his father and stepmother to humiliate me was unacceptable. According to what I've heard, she feels strongly that Mark needs to grow a spine and stand up to our father and Jenny. This led to a significant argument between them, to the point where they postponed their honeymoon to work through some of these issues. I don't know much more than that, but it's clear that my brother is being forced to face the reality of the situation, and that includes re-examining his relationship with our father and Jenny. I can't help but feel a strange mix of emotions about this. On one hand, it's a relief to know that someone else saw what happened for what it truly was. It's validating to hear that Mark's wife was just as appalled as I was by our father's and Jenny's behavior. But on the other hand, I feel bad for Mark. He's in a tough spot, and while I'm angry with him for not standing up for me, I know he's been under a lot of pressure from our family for years. It's not an excuse, but it's still a difficult position to be in, especially now that he's newly married and trying to navigate this mess. As for me, I'm focusing on moving forward. With the legal matters behind me and Jenny's attempts to sabotage my business being handled by my legal team, I'm starting to feel a sense of closure. I'm not sure what the future holds for my relationship with Mark or the rest of the family, but I'm taking things one day at a time. For now, I'm just grateful for the support I've received from my staff, my business partners, and even some family members who've reached out in private to offer their encouragement. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens, but for now, I'm hopeful that this chapter is coming to a close. Thanks again for all the support. Update 3. Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for all the support, comments, and messages I've received since I first shared my story. The past week has been truly transformative, and I want to share how things have evolved and the unexpected turns my life has taken since my last update. Yesterday, I met with Mark for coffee. It was a kind of emotional meetup that I wasn't entirely sure I was ready for, but I felt it was necessary. The conversation was a long time coming, and I think we both knew it. Mark broke down and apologized for years of enabling Jenny's behavior and our father's favoritism. He was visibly shaken, and I could see how much he was carrying on his shoulders. I always knew Mark loved me, but hearing him admit that he had been complicit in allowing Jenny to dictate our family dynamics was a huge step. Mark revealed that Jenny had been controlling their family dynamics through financial manipulation for years. He disclosed that she convinced our father to put most of their assets in her name, which included partial ownership of Mark's condo. Mark had no idea this was happening, and he felt blindsided. It explained a lot about the tension between them. He was frustrated that he had been living under this facade, believing he had some control over his life when in reality, Jenny was orchestrating everything. Now that he's aware of it, he's working with a financial advisor to regain his independence. I was proud of him for taking this step. It showed he was ready to make changes in his life. During our coffee meeting, Mark also told me about a breakthrough with his wife. She contacted me privately later that day to share some good news. They are going to couples counseling. It seems Mark is finally finding his voice and standing up to Jenny in a way he never did before. They are actively looking for a new condo, one that will be solely in their names, not tied to Jenny in any way. This was a huge relief to hear. It sounds like they're setting boundaries and taking back control over their lives, which is a journey I hope continues for both of them. Additionally, Mark's wife mentioned that they're planning a small vow renewal ceremony in a few months. This ceremony will have different in-laws seated at the family table, meaning they're taking active steps to redefine what family looks like for them. Hearing this warmed my heart. It seems they are committed to building a new family narrative that doesn't include the toxicity that Jenny and my father have brought into our lives. As for Jenny and my father, they've surprisingly gone quiet since signing the NDA. Through some mutual acquaintances, I've learned that they are facing social consequences in their country club circle. Apparently, they had been telling a very different version of our family story to their friends, painting me as the villain. Now it seems that people are starting to question their narrative, and the consequences of their actions are catching up to them. It's strange to think that the social standing they valued so much is now in jeopardy because of their own behavior. This entire experience has taught me a lot about the importance of setting boundaries with toxic family members. Sometimes the hardest decisions, like maintaining those boundaries or standing up for your principles, are the right ones, even when they cause short-term chaos. I've come to realize that standing firm in my truth, despite the backlash, has led to unexpected growth and healing in other relationships. I'm grateful for the community support. Many of you have reached out to share your own experiences with toxic family dynamics, and it's comforting to know I'm not alone in this. I hope my story can help others facing similar situations. I've realized that life is too short for toxic relationships, but it's never too late for genuine reconciliation with those who are truly sorry. Looking ahead, I plan to maintain my boundaries with Jenny and my father. They've shown me who they truly are, and I have no desire to re-enter that dynamic. However, I'm cautiously optimistic about rebuilding relationships with Mark and other family members who are willing to interact respectfully. I think there's a chance for us to reconnect, especially since Mark is now aware of the need for healthier boundaries. As for my business, Things are going better than I could have anticipated. In the wake of the wedding incident, I received several inquiries from potential clients who were impressed with how my staff handled the situation. They appreciated the professionalism we maintained despite the chaos. Our reputation has actually strengthened in the local community, and we're experiencing a surge in bookings as a result. It feels rewarding to know that my hard work over the years is paying off, and that I'm being recognized for the dedication I've put into my company. I also took the time to meet with my employees to discuss the incident. I wanted to ensure they felt supported and acknowledged for their professionalism during a challenging event. The feedback from them was heartwarming. Many expressed their appreciation for the strong company culture we've built together, which made me feel proud as a leader. It reinforced my belief in the importance of treating employees well and fostering a positive workplace environment. To those who asked about future family events, I'll continue to maintain my boundaries with Jenny and my father, but I'm excited to explore the possibility of reestablishing connections with Mark and other family members ready to interact respectfully. It's a fine line to walk, but I'm hopeful. Life is too short for toxic relationships, and I want to focus on the positive connections that bring joy and support into my life. Thank you all for your unwavering support and kind messages. They've meant more to me than you know. I might not post updates moving forward, but I wanted to share this final update to let you know how things have changed for the better. I hope you all take care and remember that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. You never know how it might inspire others to do the same. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Sil abandoned her baby with me to live a free-spirited life, but now she's back with her new fiancé demanding her daughter back. So I showed her these papers and she freaked out. For the past 5 years, I, 32F, have been raising my husband's, 32M, niece, Abby, alongside my own children as our daughter. And now, all of a sudden, my sister-in-law, Riley, 25F, is back and wants me to give up custody of her, so she can have her daughter back and complete her family. For the record, she was the one who had given up the baby in the beginning, and now that I'm refusing to let her take over, she's making a huge stink about it. It's become such a huge deal that I've actually started doubting myself. All of this started 5 years back when Riley got pregnant with her boyfriend at the time, but they were not serious about each other. She decided to keep the baby and he decided to leave her, and that was that. Since my husband and I are not particularly close with her, we were not really invested in the pregnancy. Then, about 2 weeks after the baby was finally born, my mother-in-law showed up at our house and told me that she wanted me to look after the baby for a couple of weeks. She said that Riley wanted to resume college since she was 20 at the time and had to drop a year because of pregnancy. They told me that they were going to look for apartments near her campus and would be back in just a few days. So they needed my help to take care of the baby since they couldn't rely on anyone else. My husband and I love kids, and by then we already had our son, so we agreed because we thought it was just going to be a couple of days. But then they literally disappeared for almost 2 months. We tried calling them, texting them, and even contacting them through other people, but there was just no way that we could reach them. When my mother-in-law finally came back, she told me that Riley had decided to give up her baby, and now she expected me to raise her. Apparently, Riley had left the country, and that's what they had spent the past 2 months making arrangements for because she wanted to lead a free-spirited lifestyle, whatever that means, and being bogged down by a baby that's not her thing anymore, and she had realized it a little too late. My husband and I were obviously shocked and furious because at the time we hadn't been planning for a second baby. We already had a 2-year-old toddler to deal with, we couldn't handle a second child, and this was something really unethical. My mother-in-law said that she herself would have adopted her grandchild, but unfortunately, since she had lost her husband a couple of years ago, she didn't think it would be wise for her to do so because she was getting old and it would also be pretty expensive. Those were just excuses though, and my husband decided to cut her out of our life back then. However, after giving it some thought, we decided to keep our niece with us and raise her as our own daughter. We obviously had no contact with Riley either, and since she had basically abandoned her daughter, we spoke to a lawyer about how we could go ahead and legally adopt Abby. It took more than a year and a lot of paperwork, but eventually, we were able to legally adopt Abby after having Riley's parental rights terminated on grounds of abandonment. And since then, she has been a part of our family, no questions asked. Then my husband and I finally had another daughter 2 years back, and our family was complete. We've been raising all 3 of our children together, and we have had to be very careful with our finances, but it's been totally worth it. And yet, in spite of doing all this, Riley thinks she is entitled to ask for her baby back now. About 2 weeks ago, she showed up at our doorstep with her new fiancé, telling us that she was planning on getting married now, and since she did not plan on putting herself through a pregnancy one more time, she just wanted Abby back, as if Abby was a dress she had lent me and not an actual human child. I asked her to give me a minute, got the paperwork from the adoption, and then showed it to her before slamming the door shut in her face. After that, she kept screaming at me from outside the door, but I had already done what I had been waiting for years to do, and luckily, when this had happened, my husband had been out with the children, so they didn't even have to witness any of this. Anyway, after I slammed the door shut and she started screaming at me, I told her that I was going to call the cops if she didn't leave, and then she finally left. I thought that this would be the end of it because obviously, I had legally adopted Abby, so she really couldn't do anything about this now. But she's been playing the victim card and trying to make my husband and I to be the bad guys right now, and somehow the family is actually falling for it. That day, when my husband finally came back home with the kids, I told him everything about what had happened, and we had mutually decided that we were not going to let this affect us. But the situation has changed now because literally every single person from his family is telling us that what we are doing is not right and that we don't have the right to keep a mother and her daughter apart just because we are attached to Abby. I don't know how to explain to them that I'm not attached to Abby just because she's a child and I've been raising her for 5 years. I feel the same way about her that I feel for the rest of my kids because I am her mother, regardless of the biological connection, and I can say the same for my husband too. So we have been doing our best to defend ourselves, but it doesn't help that even my mother-in-law, who had actually left Abby with us years ago and explained the situation to us, isn't on our side and actually believes that we should return Abby to her mother. But I guess that's just out of pettiness because for the past 5 years, we haven't been in touch with her since we had cut her out of our lives for being sneaky about the whole thing since it had been quite unethical. Her behavior, at least we can explain it because she's just being petty and vengeful, but the rest of my husband's family, I don't know how to explain that. The messages have been pouring in since last week after Riley made a post about the incident. In the post, she said that she had made a mistake 5 years ago by abandoning her daughter, but now that she wants to rectify that mistake, we are not allowing her to do so and are keeping her away from her own daughter. The tone of the post had been pretty emotional and I don't know how, but she managed to dupe people into believing that she was the victim here. And since then, my husband's family hasn't wasted a single day. They've been calling us all sorts of names, telling us that what we are doing is ruthless and that we are destroying Abby's life. It's gotten to the extent where we are actually doubting ourselves, and I feel like I'm going crazy. I know that she cannot do anything legally, which is probably why she is coming after us like this. Anyway, what do you guys think about this? Am I the AITA for refusing to return my niece to my sister-in-law after raising her for 5 years? Edit. I'm pasting the post here for anyone who wanted to see what I was talking about. Hi everyone, this is Riley, and I want to talk to you guys about something really important today. It's going to be about my daughter. I know a lot of you are probably not even aware that I have a daughter, and it's partly my own fault. I had left my daughter behind here when I moved away from life as I knew it 5 years back. I wanted to be free from all the expectations that everyone had for me. I wanted to start a new life for myself, and to some degree I've been successful in doing so. I have found a wonderful man for myself. Jacob loves me like nobody else, and soon enough he's going to be my husband. When I told him about my daughter, he was ready to accept her too, because that would complete our family. So I approached my sister-in-law, Michelle, who had been raising my daughter for the past 5 years. Unfortunately, she has taken this opportunity to claim my daughter as her own and is refusing to let me take my daughter back from her. I am helpless because she has transferred custody of my daughter to herself, and I don't think I'll be able to do anything about this legally. So I need all the help and support I can get from everyone here to bring my baby back home. I know that it was my mistake that I trusted her in the first place, but honest to God, I had never expected something like this to happen. I had thought that she was just going to take care of my baby in my absence, and whenever I was ready, I would get to be a mother to my child again. But that chance has been taken away from me, and I can't even begin to explain how much it hurts. Please support me here, you guys have no idea how much it'll mean to me. Thank you so much. Please get my baby back home. Update 1. Hi. Thank you so much to everybody who responded to my post. I have been driving myself crazy by overthinking what's going on. But after reading through the comments, I realized that I was actually being crazy by entertaining these people. There is obviously something very wrong with my husband's family, and it was stupid of us to care about what they were saying. Whatever they say, it doesn't matter because they don't have a legal leg to stand on. The facts remain that my sister-in-law had abandoned her baby, which is why we ended up adopting Abby. If she had been involved in her life, I don't even think the courts would have allowed this to happen. She's been extremely manipulative and clever with her words, which is why so many of my family members have come out in her support. But no matter how much she tries to distort and twist the truth in her favor, we know the facts. We had been blocking people initially, but after that, it got too overwhelming and we started doubting ourselves, so we stopped for a while. However, we are back to blocking people now, and just to be on the safe side, we have also spoken to our lawyer, and in case she tries to create more drama, we're going to be slapping her with a defamation lawsuit. Right now, we are letting it go because it honestly doesn't matter what a bunch of losers from my husband's family think about us. However, if she tries to go public with this, we're going to have to take serious legal action against her. It's actually pretty insane that any of this is happening and people are actually on her side right now. But well, weirder things have happened as well. Update 2. So it's been a week since my last update, and 2 days back, for some reason, Riley decided to show up at our house again. I don't know why she came by this time. My husband and my kids were at home, so I did not even open the door. As soon as I saw that it was her standing outside, I asked her to leave, and I literally had my phone in my hand to call the cops if she refused. So far, we had been blocking all the relatives who had been texting us in favor of Riley, and we also blocked her everywhere so she wouldn't be able to contact us. Basically, we had no idea what had been going on with everyone else because, as they say, ignorance is bliss. I guess that's why she took the trouble to show up in person, and when I told her to leave, she told me that she just wanted to see Abby just once. After all, Abby was her biological daughter, and if she couldn't take her with her, the least I could do for her was allow her to catch a glimpse of how she looked now. Her voice sounded like it was about to crack, like when people are about to cry, but I was not falling for that. I told her that I was not going to allow her to even see Abby anymore because she had lost that right when she left her with us for a free-spirited lifestyle. Besides, after all the rubbish that she had posted online and the way she had sent her entire family after us, she had no right to even speak to us. So I gave her one last warning to leave, and instead, she started begging me not to do this, but I didn't care. I told my husband what was going on, so he took the kids to the nursery and I called the cops. We just didn't want the kids to get to know that any of this was happening, so he played with them while I handled the cops, and she was escorted off our property. She went away quietly without any drama, which was quite suspicious because I really didn't think that was going to happen, since while we were waiting for the cops to arrive, she kept begging me to let her see her daughter and promised me that she would go away and never bother me again if I just let her see Abby once. Anyway, after she left, my husband and I had a talk, but unfortunately, we realized that we couldn't stop her from showing up. We could file a restraining order against her, but that's the most that we could do, and even then, we couldn't ensure that she would never show up again. Moving away was not happening, especially in this economy when rent is so expensive. Luckily, my father-in-law had bought us this house, and it also meant a lot to us sentimentally, so we didn't want to move. We just have to deal with it, I guess. Update 3. Hey, so I received a lot of comments on my last post calling me heartless all because I didn't allow Riley to see Abby, and it's fascinating how people are calling me heartless right now even though it was Riley who had abandoned her baby and left to move to another country so she could live freely. And then after that, she's come back after 5 years without any contact in between with no concern for her baby's well-being. And now, all of a sudden, she can't wait to be a mother again. Not to mention how idiotic her behavior has been ever since she came back. How she has been playing the victim on social media and sending her relatives after me. It's really difficult to feel sorry for somebody like that, and I really don't feel sorry for her at all. Besides, I had thought of all the possibilities, and after that, I had declined. The biggest thing that I have been worried about is that she might have blurted something out in front of Abby, and then I would have to explain to a 5-year-old things that she has no business knowing at the moment. It's just not necessary to create all the drama, and that's why I asked her to leave. I don't think I'm the heartless one here at all, and whoever left those comments really needs to reevaluate what they think. Anyway, now that that is out of the way, I want to talk about what happened recently, and I think after hearing me out, whoever had been calling me heartless for not letting Riley see Abby will change their mind too because she's obviously unstable. Last week, I refused to let her see Abby, and a couple of days ago, she decided to take matters into her own hands and started stalking us. At first, neither my husband nor I were suspicious, but then we started noticing that every time we would go out, there was the same car trailing us all the time. It didn't take much for us to figure out that it must have been Riley, and a couple of days later we decided to confront her. We pulled over while she was driving behind, went to her car and demanded that she come out. And when she did, I read her the riot act in the middle of the street. I didn't even care about who was watching us. I just wanted her to know that what she was doing was messed up and that I was going to file a restraining order against her because she was unstable and obviously did not deserve to be around Abby. She was quiet for the first couple of minutes, but when I told her that she did not deserve to be around Abby, she started yelling back at me and told me that she was going to make sure that she took custody of her daughter away from me. She was really getting on my nerves, so I called her psychotic and told her to get off our backs. And then she slapped me, and it happened so suddenly that I didn't even see it coming. After she slapped me, she immediately started apologizing to me with tears in her eyes, but I was done. Physical violence was where I drew the line, and add to that the stalking, the constant harassment, and everything else, I knew that I had to speak to a lawyer. My husband and I were obviously pretty shocked, and we were headed to the grocery store at the time, but we didn't end up going. We headed back home, and even when we were getting back into our car, she followed us to the car and was begging for forgiveness all that while. Eventually, my husband had to tell her that if she tried to follow us back home, he would make sure that she faced some terrible consequences, so she didn't follow us back. And when we got home, I immediately called my lawyer up and explained everything to him. Once that was done, he reassured us that he would be preparing the paperwork to file a restraining order against her. Just to be on the safe side, he also told us to report Riley and press charges against her. So a couple of minutes later, after speaking to our lawyer, we called the cops and explained everything to them. And since it was just a slap, my husband and I had thought that she would be let off with a warning, but then when we told them about the stalking and everything, they decided to press charges against her, so that's definitely going to come in handy when we are trying to get that restraining order. We haven't heard from Riley ever since, and we are hoping to keep it that way because after everything that has happened, I really just don't even think that we have anything to talk about. We never did in the first place, but until now, we had been trying to keep things civil. She hadn't been doing that, but we just didn't want drama in our lives, and we figured that if we kept ignoring her, she would take the hint and leave us alone. But clearly, that's not what has happened. That's on us. We should have nipped this in the bud instead of trying to play nice at all. Our children are our first priority, and we are just hoping that this doesn't affect them in any way. Until now, it really hasn't, apart from them just constantly asking us if we are fine because I guess we've been a little quieter than usual. However, we are trying to fix that, not let them know what we're going through because keeping them happy is our main goal right now. Everything's been incredibly stressful for both my husband and I, but I really do hope that things get better soon. And yes, please just keep praying for the best for us now. Update 4. Hi. It's been a month since my last update, and a couple of days back, we finally managed to get the restraining order through. It's been a huge relief because we've been pretty stressed out about this whole thing. She also got several hours of community service for stalking and slapping me. We haven't exactly heard from her, but I know that my mother-in-law is very upset about this yet again. Instead of being upset at the right person, she's upset with us. She thinks that it's our fault that I ended up getting slapped that day, and she has even reached out to my parents to communicate that to them. She thinks that I'm heartless, and if I had just let Riley see her daughter one time, none of this would have happened. She called my parents a couple of weeks ago, and she told them that I'm the one who pushed her daughter into doing something like this, and right now, things are going pretty badly for Riley. I don't know how any of this is my fault, and even if it technically was my fault, wouldn't my husband be at fault too? She didn't say anything about him, and I really can't think of any reason to involve my parents in this. I honestly don't understand why that woman has it for me, or rather, why my husband's family seems to hate me so much. I have never been anything but nice to them, but I guess that's just not enough for some people. Thankfully, she had only spoken to my parents on the phone and hadn't bothered them in person. So they had the liberty to hang up whenever they felt like they had had enough. So they only had to hear her out for a couple of minutes before disconnecting the phone call, and even after that, she sent them a bunch of messages calling them rude and mannerless and saying that she finally understood where I got it from. I think it's really crazy that she's going to such lengths just to humiliate me, knowing that I've not done anything wrong. I'm sure that she's not that delusional in reality because when I used to be on speaking terms with her in the past, she seemed like a pretty reasonable person. Anyway, if this is what she's choosing to do, that's her call. All it's going to do is make sure that her son never speaks to her, and she doesn't have any access to her grandkids. But I hardly think it's going to affect her because she's already spent 5 years without them. I think she can go 5 more. Eventually, though, she is going to realize that she's not getting anything out of Riley, and she's going to come crawling back to us, and then we'll talk. Anyway, my parents didn't seem to care, and they just wanted to inform me that this was happening behind my back. I felt a little insulted, and I felt like I had to apologize to my parents, but they just dismissed it because obviously they understood that this was not my fault. So that was all done and dusted, and now we just hope that this doesn't put ideas into my mother-in-law's or Riley's head and they don't go talking to other people. So far, they have only stuck to trying to emotionally manipulate my husband's family, but if they take this public and start talking to our friends or coworkers, that would be pretty humiliating for us. We can't exactly do anything to prevent it from happening, but we are just hoping that it doesn't. But at least we got the restraining order, so that's been a huge relief. Now if she tries to show up, we're just going to get her arrested, and that'll put an end to all of this. Since that's done, my husband and I are going to try and focus more of our time on our kids. I guess we've been spending a little less time with them ever since Riley came back into our lives, and so we have decided that we are going to take a vacation. We've already started planning for it and spoken about it at work as well. We're pretty excited because I think we deserve this break after all that we have been through as a family, so well, let's see how that goes, and I think that's about it for me right now. Update 5. So it's been a couple of months since my last update, and after I came back home from vacation with my kids, we felt a lot lighter, so I hadn't exactly been active here. Anyway, last evening, I received a message from a number I did not recognize, but after reading through it, I realized that it was Riley's fiancé who had shown up with her the first day that everything started. I was truly very confused as to why he was texting me, but then I read his message and well, long story short, he dumped Riley, and he just wanted to text and apologize to us. It was actually Riley who had shared my contact info with him at first because she wanted him to text me when I had blocked her, but he thought that it would be taking it too far, so he never did. Up until recently, he had been sympathizing with Riley because he thought that I was wrong, but there had always been a little doubt about it in his mind, and I don't know what changed all of a sudden because he didn't mention anything in his message, but he said that recently he had had the realization that Riley was the one who was wrong here, and he didn't want to be a part of something so messed up anymore. So he had to dump her, and he was moving back to his hometown in a couple of days. But before that, he just wanted to apologize to me for all the inconvenience that Riley had caused me. It was actually pretty sweet of him because I didn't think that he had been part of any of this as far as I knew. But he was literally just apologizing for not standing up for me and doing the right thing. I showed it to my husband, and he was pretty surprised about it as well. But then we just told him that it was fine and wished him all the best, and that was it. Then this morning, we heard from a couple of friends that Riley had been crying about this on social media. Apparently, she had posted a video saying that she had been dumped by her fiancé who had been with her for the past 3 years, and it was all my fault again. I don't understand how any of this is my fault, but I guess this is just how she and her mother roll. Whatever goes wrong in their lives, just blame me for it. Whatever that video was, obviously posted so people would sympathize with her and give her attention, and they did end up doing so because our friend told us that the comment section was full of people hating on me and telling Riley that she deserved better. They were painting her to be some tragic figure who had been through so much, but well, I guess we also know the truth about her. Anyway, it doesn't matter because she's getting all her karma right now. Update 6. My last update was just a couple of weeks back, and I didn't think I'd be back here so soon, but what I found out is hilarious. Our friends told us that right now Riley and my mother-in-law are having a very public fight on social media. Apparently, after Riley was dumped, she chose to blame her mother too in one of her videos. I guess after blaming me for a couple of days, she realized that I was not going to respond, so she chose to start blaming her mom. She claimed that apparently her mother was the one who had made her give up her baby to me, and now she was equally at fault for the situation at hand. Her fiancé leaving her is apparently everybody else's fault now, and it's hilarious how she's dodging accountability. I guess she is in denial right now, but she can't run away from the truth forever. Someday she'll have to accept her own faults. Until then, though, she can definitely go on blaming her mom for everything because the way they are fighting online right now is hilarious. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Parents gave my sister $400,000 for her wedding as a gift. Offered to pay for mine but then sent me an invoice 2 days later. So I paid and cut contact, but my sister is screaming at my door. I never had the best relationship with my parents, but it wasn't terrible either. They were always more partial towards my sister, Sarah, but I learned to live with it. Sarah, now 32, was always the golden child, and I, at 28, was used to being in her shadow. Growing up, she got the newest phones, better clothes, and more attention, while I made do with hand-me-downs and worked part-time jobs since I was 16 to afford the things I wanted. I didn't complain much. I understood that my parents weren't obligated to provide anything beyond the basics. Plus, I took pride in being independent. The real shock came when Sarah got married 3 years ago. My parents gave her and her husband a whopping $400,000 as a wedding gift, which they used to buy a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. At the time, I was genuinely happy for her, even if it stung a little. I had my own life going on. I was doing well as a software engineer, had saved up a decent amount of money, and was dating Tom, who would later become my husband. I figured my time would come, and I didn't dwell on the fact that my parents had never given me anything close to what they gave Sarah. After all, I didn't expect it. Fast forward to last year when Tom proposed. I was over the moon. We had been together for years, and he was everything I had hoped for in a partner. We planned a modest wedding, nothing too extra, because we wanted to save for the future. Neither of us wanted to blow all our savings on a single day, even if it was important. We had budgeted around $36,000, which felt reasonable for the kind of wedding we wanted, elegant but not over the top. To my surprise, my parents offered to pay for the entire wedding. I was touched. It felt like, for once, they were recognizing me as equally important. They seemed enthusiastic, asking about venues and vendors, and they genuinely appeared to be interested in helping. I didn't think too much about the amount. I figured they had already done so much for Sarah, so maybe they wanted to do something for me too. I never expected them to contribute anywhere near what they gave Sarah, but their offer to cover the wedding seemed generous. The wedding day was perfect. We had a small, intimate ceremony with close family and friends, exactly the way we wanted it. My parents gave speeches, danced with us, and seemed genuinely happy. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally being treated equally, like they were proud of me. Tom and I planned to leave for our honeymoon the following week, but we had a few work commitments to wrap up before we left. Then, 2 days after the wedding, I received an email from my father. It wasn't a sweet note or leftover wedding gift card like I had imagined. Instead, it was an itemized invoice attached as a PDF, listing every single expense they had paid for the wedding. The email was short and cold. Please settle this at your earliest convenience. Your mother and I expect prompt payment. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The invoice totaled $35,463.89, down to the last flower arrangement and appetizer. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Tom found me sitting there, frozen, and when I showed him the email, he was livid. It wasn't about the money. We could afford it if we needed to, but that wasn't the point. My parents had offered to pay for the wedding. I hadn't asked them to cover a single thing. They had come to me, offered it as a gift, and even seemed excited to be part of the planning process. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about the money. It was about years of being treated as less than Sarah. When she got married, they gave her $400,000 as a gift, no strings attached. They never asked her to pay back a single cent. And now they were essentially billing me for my wedding, treating it like a loan. It felt like all the emotional baggage from years of favoritism had finally culminated in this one cruel act. The next morning, after a long, sleepless night of going over everything with Tom, I made a decision. I wrote my parents a check for the full amount, but I also sent them a letter. I didn't want to confront them directly because I knew I wouldn't be able to keep my emotions in check, and I didn't want this to turn into a screaming match. In the letter, I explained how hurt I was. I reminded them that I had been independent since I was 16, paying my own way, while watching them give everything to Sarah. I wrote that when they offered to pay for the wedding, I had mistakenly believed that they were finally treating me with the same love and care they had always given my sister. Instead, they had blindsided me. I didn't hold back. I told them that all this time I had let a lot of stuff slide and never said a single word about how differently they treated Sarah and me. But what I couldn't accept was this cruel bait and switch. They had made me believe they were giving me a gift, only to turn around and demand repayment as though I were some stranger, not their daughter. I also wrote that this would be the last financial interaction we would ever have. From that point on, I would decline any future offers of help, support, or gifts from them, and I made it clear that I wanted nothing from them in the future, not even an inheritance. I told them they could give it all to Sarah, as they had done with everything else. I sent the check and letter by mail and blocked their numbers. I needed space. Tom supported my decision, and I felt a sense of relief after mailing everything. But then they went radio silent for days. I heard nothing from them, which only fueled the fire for me. Then the messages from extended family started pouring in. Distant aunts, uncles, and family friends began calling and texting, accusing me of being ungrateful and dramatic. They said my parents had done so much for me and that I was blowing things out of proportion. Sarah called me too, yelling about how I was tearing the family apart. She said that I should have just paid the invoice without making a fuss. It was typical Sarah, always taking their side, and why wouldn't she? I haven't responded to any of them. I don't know what to say. On one hand, I feel justified in my actions. After years of being treated as second best, this felt like the last straw, and I wanted to stand up for myself. But on the other hand, I keep wondering if I'm overreacting. Am I being too sensitive? Was it unreasonable of me to expect that they would treat my wedding as a gift, like they did with Sarah? Should I have just sucked it up, paid the invoice, and moved on? Tom's family has been incredibly supportive through all of this. His parents were horrified when they heard what my parents had done, and they've been checking in on us every day. But the constant messages from my side of the family are starting to wear me down. I'm questioning whether I made the right decision. Did I handle this the wrong way? Should I have tried to talk to my parents before cutting them off? Or was I right to finally draw a line after years of feeling like I wasn't as valued as Sarah? Now I am truly stuck, and I am not sure if I'm the one in the wrong. Part of me feels like I had every right to be upset and stand up for myself, but another part of me wonders if I've just created an irreparable rift in my family. Maybe I should have handled things differently. Do you guys have any insights? Update 1. Since my last post, things have taken a turn for the worse. I had no idea the simple act of sending that check and letter would set off such a chain reaction. But here we are. Yesterday morning, I woke up to an email from my mother. It slipped through because she used her work email, which I hadn't blocked yet. The email was long and self-righteous. In it, she explained that the invoice they sent me wasn't meant to be taken seriously. According to her, they never actually intended to cash the check. The whole thing, she claimed, was a life lesson about financial responsibility. They had wanted to test my reaction, and once they felt I had learned my lesson, they were planning to tear up the check and surprise me with a gift of $100,000 as a real wedding gift. I couldn't believe what I was reading. A life lesson? What kind of parents trick their adult daughter like this? After reading that, it became even more clear that it wasn't about love or fairness. It was about control. They wanted to see if I would push back or blindly comply. Felt manipulative and cruel. Without hesitation, I mobile deposited the check. There was no way I was letting them tear it up after this lesson. I wanted the check cashed, and I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions. Then, in response to my mother's email, I sent her a short reply. I kept it simple and direct. Thank you for confirming that this was indeed a deliberate test, rather than a misunderstanding. After sending it, I blocked her work email too. I knew there would be more attempts to contact me, and I wasn't interested in any more games or so-called lessons. Later that evening, things escalated further. Sarah showed up at my apartment unannounced. She started knocking loudly on my door, yelling my name. I didn't answer at first, hoping she would give up and leave, but that didn't happen. Instead, she started shouting through the door, saying I was being childish and making this whole situation bigger than it needed to be. She said our parents were just trying to teach me responsibility because they were worried about my spending habits. That comment, coming from Sarah of all people, made my blood boil. This was the same woman who had never paid for her own phone bill, never worked a day in her life without my parents' support, and yet she had the audacity to lecture me about financial responsibility. As she ranted on, I quietly started recording everything on my phone. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but I wanted to have proof in case this turned into something even messier. Sarah went on and on about how I was tearing the family apart over something so trivial and that I should just apologize to our parents and move on. She said they never meant to hurt me and that they had always done their best for both of us. She kept insisting that I was overreacting and that this entire situation was my fault. I didn't respond. I didn't open the door. I just sat there listening, silently fuming. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, she left, but not before calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to cut ties with the family over money. Once she was gone, I sat in silence for a while, feeling the weight of everything. Sarah's outburst only confirmed what I had already known for years. She would always take their side, no matter how unreasonable or hurtful their actions were. That night, I received more messages from extended family members. Apparently, Sarah had gone straight to my parents after her failed attempt at talking to me, and now they were rallying the troops. My phone was flooded with texts from aunts, uncles, and even a few family friends. Most of the messages followed the same pattern, calling me ungrateful, accusing me of causing unnecessary drama, and urging me to apologize to my parents for how I had treated them. One message in particular stuck out to me. It was from an aunt I hadn't heard from in years. She told me that I was lucky to have parents who cared enough to teach me these lessons and that I should be grateful they were willing to spend so much on my wedding at all. She ended the message by saying that I was lucky to even have parents who wanted to be involved in my life. I couldn't believe how quickly everyone had turned on me. It was like they had all decided that my parents were in the right simply because they were the ones with the money and power. No one seemed to care about the emotional manipulation or the years of favoritism that had led up to this point. All they saw was that I was rejecting my parents' supposed generosity, and that was enough for them to side against me. By this point, Tom was starting to worry about how much this was affecting me. He kept asking if I wanted to take a break from social media and turn off my phone for a while, just to give myself some peace. He tried to reassure me that I wasn't in the wrong. He reminded me of all the times my parents had shown favoritism towards Sarah and how they had always used money as a tool to manipulate both of us. The most frustrating part was that I couldn't get any real answers. My parents weren't reaching out to explain themselves any further. They truly believed in their own narrative, painting themselves as the misunderstood parents who were just trying to help, while I was the ungrateful daughter who had blown everything out of proportion. I started to wonder if I should have handled things differently. Maybe instead of sending that letter and blocking them, I should have sat down with them and had a real conversation. But then again, I knew how those conversations usually went. They would twist everything around until I was the one apologizing for feeling hurt in the first place. It was a cycle I had been stuck in for years, and I wasn't sure if I had the energy to go through it again. Anyways, for now, I'm trying to focus on the life Tom and I are building together. We can't do much now and just hope for things to get better, I guess. Update 2. Hey everyone! I wanted to start by thanking all of you for your responses. Reading through your comments, advice, and personal stories really helped me process what has been happening. It's been a whirlwind of emotions over the past few days, and your support has meant more than you could know. While I've tried to stay strong through this, things have taken yet another unexpected turn. A few days after Sarah's visit, I received a call from my father's brother, my uncle. I hadn't spoken to him in years, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect. He's never been close to the family, but I figured he was reaching out to tell me to make amends with my parents, like everyone else had been doing. Instead, what he told me blew my mind and put everything into perspective in a way I hadn't seen before. He started by saying he had heard what was going on through the family grapevine, and he felt compelled to reach out because apparently this wasn't the first time my parents had pulled a stunt like this. 20 years ago, Something similar had happened between him and my grandparents, my father's parents. My uncle had refused to go along with their manipulative tactics, and as a result, they smeared his name throughout the family, accusing him of trying to steal from them and being ungrateful for everything they had done for him. He explained that back then, my dad didn't support him. In fact, he sided with their parents, which led to a huge rift between the two brothers that had never fully healed. My uncle said that he had always felt abandoned by my dad, and it had taken him years to come to terms with how their family operated. Hearing him speak about the past was like listening to my own story, but in a different context. My grandparents had used money and manipulation to control my uncle, just like my parents were trying to do with me now. The more he spoke, the more it all started to make sense. My parents weren't just acting out of character. They were repeating a pattern that had been set long before I was even born. They had learned this behavior from their own parents, and my dad, having been complicit in his brother's situation all those years ago, was now playing the same role as me. My uncle also mentioned that his refusal to comply with my grandparents' demands came with severe consequences. After the falling out, my grandparents cut him off completely, both financially and emotionally. They painted him as the black sheep of the family, and to this day, there are relatives who still believe the lies my grandparents spread about him. It was all about control, he said, and when they couldn't control him anymore, they erased him from their lives. Listening to my uncle's story sent chills down my spine. It was like a mirror image of what was happening to me now. My parents were upset because I had refused to play along with their game, and instead of trying to understand my perspective, they had turned the entire family against me. I started to see just how deep this toxic cycle ran and how entrenched my parents were in the belief that they could control their children through manipulation. After my conversation with my uncle, I couldn't stop thinking about everything he had said. It made me wonder if deep down, my father's behavior was driven by guilt. Maybe he knew he had abandoned his brother all those years ago, and now he was trying to justify his actions by doubling down on the same tactics. My parents had built their entire relationship with Sarah and me around the idea that we owe them something, and any deviation from that script was seen as betrayal. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that this wasn't about me at all. It was about them, their unresolved issues, and the unhealthy dynamics they had learned from their own parents. In the days that followed, I kept receiving more messages from family members. It was clear that Sarah had been working overtime to rally people against me. One of my cousins, whom I had always been close to, sent me a long text saying that I was being selfish and disrespectful for not appreciating everything my parents had done for me. She said that it wasn't too late to fix things, but I needed to humble myself and apologize before it was too late. Her message was filled with the same rhetoric that everyone else had been using, and it was exhausting to read. I realized that I had been raised in a family where love was conditional. Everything came with strings attached, whether it was financial help, emotional support, or even something as simple as celebrating a life event like a wedding. And now that I had refused to play by their rules, I was being cut off and isolated, just like my uncle had been. Tom has been my rock through all of this. After my uncle's call, we sat down and had a long talk about the future. He told me that no matter what happens, we'll get through this together and that I don't owe anyone anything. Not my parents, not Sarah, and certainly not the extended family members who had suddenly become armchair psychologists. His support has been unwavering, and for that, I'm grateful beyond words. But even with Tom by my side, I am still a little conflicted. My parents had done a number on me emotionally, and part of me still wondered if I was in the wrong. Was there a way to fix things without compromising my boundaries? I spent hours going back and forth in my head, trying to figure out if there was a path to reconciliation that didn't involve me sacrificing my own mental health. Then something strange happened. I received a voicemail from my dad. It was the first time he had tried to reach out directly since I had sent the letter and check. His voice sounded different. He didn't sound angry or demanding, like I had expected. Instead, he sounded tired. In the message, he said he didn't want to fight anymore and that he was willing to talk if I was open to it. He didn't apologize or acknowledge what had happened, but it was clear that something had shifted. Maybe he was starting to realize that I wasn't going to back down this time. I haven't responded yet. Part of me wants to call him back and see if there's a chance we can have an honest conversation about everything, but another part of me knows that this could just be another attempt to manipulate me into feeling guilty. My uncle's words keep ringing in my ears. They'll never admit they're wrong because they don't think they are. If I do decide to talk to my dad, I need to be prepared for the possibility that nothing will change. Right now, I'm still processing everything. The revelations from my uncle, the messages from family, my dad's voicemail. It's all going on in my head, and I'm not sure what my next step will be. I want to believe that my parents can change, that they can finally see me as an equal and not just someone they can control. But I also know that after years of being treated like this, it's going to take more than a single conversation to repair the damage. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. Tom and I have been focusing on our lives and our future together, trying to build something healthy and free from the toxic patterns of our family. But the doubt still lingers. Am I doing the right thing by standing my ground, or am I pushing away the only family I've ever known? As much as I want to have a clear answer, I'm still in the same old boat, and maybe that's okay. I'll keep you all updated as things progress, but for now, I'm just trying to navigate this as best as I can. Update 3. Hi everyone. I want to start by saying how grateful I am for all of your responses. Your advice and support have been invaluable as I navigate this mess with my family. When I first posted, I wasn't sure where things were headed or what I wanted to do, but after reading through your comments and giving it a lot of thought, I've come to some important realizations. One thing that really stood out to me from your responses was how many of you pointed out that for a long time I've been forcing myself to make things good with my mom and dad, trying to patch things up and pretend like everything was normal. But the truth is, I finally accepted that it's okay if things don't go back to normal because honestly, I'm not even sure what normal was. The dynamic with my parents has always been unhealthy, and I've spent years trying to ignore that. Now I realize that it's okay to let go of the idea that things will ever be the way I want them to be. A lot of you also pointed out that I might have been too forgiving in my assumptions about my dad's guilt. Looking back, I see that I was holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, my dad's behavior was driven by guilt and that he could change. You were right. It doesn't justify his actions, and it doesn't excuse the years of manipulation, favoritism, and emotional control. No matter how guilty he might feel, it doesn't erase the harm that's been done, and it doesn't mean I have to let him off the hook for it. But at the same time, I realized that I do need closure. I need to put an end to this chapter of my life, whether or not it involves reconciliation with my parents. So I decided to meet my dad. I felt like it was something I had to do to get closure for myself, not for them. When I met my dad, I could tell right away that he wasn't the same person I had grown up fearing. He seemed worn down, almost defeated, and for the first time in my life, he actually seemed apologetic. He didn't come out and say, "I'm sorry," in those exact words, but he apologized for how things had gone with the wedding and for how both my mom and Sarah had treated me. He even mentioned that he had spoken to some of our relatives and asked them to stop bothering me, which was a small relief. But then he did something that caught me off guard. He tried to return the money. He pulled out the same check I had sent him for the wedding expenses and slid it across the table toward me, asking me to take it back. He said that he and my mom had discussed it and that they wanted to make things right. But this time I was prepared. I told him as clearly as I could that I wasn't taking the money back. I made it clear that this wasn't just about the money. It was about everything that had happened over the years, the way I had always been treated as second best, and the emotional toll that had taken on me. I told him that taking the money back wouldn't fix that, and that this wasn't about a financial transaction anymore. I could see his frustration when I refused the money. It was as if he didn't know what else to offer me. I think in his mind, returning the money was his way of saying sorry, but it didn't address the deeper issues that had been festering for years. He couldn't see that the damage wasn't something that could be undone with a check. After I told him I wasn't taking the money, he sat quietly for a few minutes before saying that he didn't want to lose me. He said he knew that things had gone too far, and he didn't want our family to be torn apart. I could tell he was trying to be sincere, but even in that moment, I realized that I wasn't looking for reconciliation, not in the way he wanted anyway. I wasn't interested in going back to the way things were or pretending like everything could magically be okay again. What I needed was space, a real break from the toxic dynamic that had defined our relationship for so long. So I told him that I needed a break from the family and that this meeting, while it was important, didn't change much. I explained that I wasn't ready to just forgive and forget and that I needed time to heal on my own terms. He didn't argue with me, which surprised me. He just nodded and said he understood. He didn't try to convince me to come back or tell me I was overreacting, like he had in the past. In some ways, that was more of an apology than anything else he could have said. As I left the meeting, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't relieved either. I think I had gone into it hoping for some kind of closure, but closure isn't as neat and tidy as we want it to be. There wasn't a clear resolution, no dramatic reconciliation or emotional breakthrough. It was just done. I had said what I needed to say, and now it was up to me to move forward. Since then, I've taken a few steps to protect my peace. I've blocked a few more family members who were still harassing me about the situation, and Tom and I have been focusing on building our life together without the constant stress of family drama. It's been nice to finally have some breathing room, but there's still a part of me that feels conflicted. I know I made the right decision by standing up for myself, but that doesn't mean it's easy. There are days when I wonder if I could have handled things differently or if I should have given my parents another chance. But then I remember all the years of feeling like I wasn't enough, and I remind myself that I deserve better. Sarah, predictably, hasn't reached out to me since the meeting with my dad. I suspect she's still upset about the fallout, but at this point, I'm not interested in trying to fix things with her either. She's made it clear where her loyalties lie, and I've accepted that our relationship will never be what it could have been. I'm okay with that now. Letting go of the fantasy that we could ever be close has been painful, but it's also been freeing. As for my dad, I don't know what the future holds. He seemed genuinely sorry for what had happened, but I'm not sure if that's enough to rebuild a relationship. For now, I'm going to continue focusing on myself and my happiness. If there's one thing I've taken away from this whole experience, it's that I deserve to put myself first for once, and I'm going to do exactly that. So I guess that's where things stand right now. It's not the happy ending I might have hoped for, but it's the ending I needed, and sometimes that's enough. Thank you again to everyone who has been following along and offering support. I appreciate it more than I can say. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Caught my wife cheating with a man she hired to fix our fence, so I divorced her. I don't know what to do. I'm sad, terrified, having horrible thoughts. I'm not a perfect man, but I thought I had the perfect life. I'm in the National Guard but work full-time in big industry. I make over 6 figures a year. I work out. I built my own house, built my own small farm. I've been with my STBX for 11 years. We finally got married 2 years ago. I just returned from a combat deployment. We were ready to have kids. I discovered she was with a man she hired to fix our fence while I was gone for over 6 months. They had unprotected sex numerous times. She fell in love with him. She did things and felt things with him she never did with me. She found her small-town cowboy she always wanted. I'm not a cowboy. She doesn't know that I know about the extreme depth of their infidelity. She has acted weird ever since I've been home, claiming she lived for a year by herself and she's adjusted to me being gone. The real reason I think is that she's in love with him, but only stays with me because I never left her, that she knows I'm a good provider and protector. He's just a younger, hot cowboy who is married and has kids and sleep with clients. What did I do wrong? I know I have to work on my vulnerability, but this hurts so bad. She talked about having kids with him and running away together. She's living this double life and pretending everything is fine. She's planning our planting season this year. We bought more chickens. She talks about having children with me and scheduling doctor's appointments. She hasn't realized how utterly broken I am as I hide behind the severe stoicism the military taught me. I've spoken with my best friend about it, discussed the details. He thinks I should file for divorce and kick her out. He says if I try to fix it with her, we can't be friends. Part of my Catholic nature, we weren't married in the Catholic Church, thinks I can fix this and make it work. I don't think it's possible. What will happen if I deploy again? I don't want to start over. I'm in my mid-30s and feel like I'm running out of time to have a dedicated wife and a farm full of kids who I want to raise to be great Americans. All I can do is cry in silence and keep the barrel of my pistol out of my mouth while I try to figure out how to approach her and have this discussion. I don't know how to start over. I don't know how to let go. I thought I was the strongest man I knew. I'm broken in half and I'm lost. Please God help me. Update 1. I broke down crying randomly 3 times driving to work this morning, listening to the Bible in a Year podcast, when Father Mike was praying for those trying to have children. The last time I cried was 2010 when my friend got killed returning from Iraq. Maybe this is acceptance. I scheduled a consultation with 2 lawyers to start filing procedures. I don't think this is savable. She has no remorse. I think she's a sociopath. I have been unable to schedule any in-person mental health sessions. First appointments are over 3 weeks out. I'm going to try and find a priest from my local parish. I told my mom and my closest friends today. That was really hard. I haven't confronted her yet, but I'm making plans. Update 2. I have 2 legal consultations today to get filing for divorce. I hired a PI based on the suggestions from you all. This guy has 5 aliases, a suspended license, and 1 conviction on his record. He's 28 years old, married with 2 kids, and lives 15 minutes from my house. I woke up in a panic attack last night while she slept next to me and started bawling my eyes out saying, "I'm sorry." She said, "Hey, maybe it's the workout supplements you're taking, or it's from something you picked up overseas. I've never seen you this upset. Maybe you should go see a doctor." Either she's playing me super hard or she's as clueless as a cat with a food dish in front of her face. Her birthday is January 29th, but I'm working at the refinery that week, so she's going to Key West with her friends from February 3rd to 6th. I'm planning on confronting her when she comes back, presenting her with the divorce papers, and asking her to leave to go live with her mom or sister. I love her so much. I need to let her go. This is the path God is revealing to me. This was supposed to happen, and He gave me the grace to find the evidence of the infidelity to prevent me from having children with her. You guys and gals have been so supportive, and it's helped me bring me out of a dark place. Thank you so much. I'll keep updating as it goes. Update 3. I'm working night shift this week at the refinery. I woke up around 1:45 p.m. I got a message from the PI I hired that she had lunch with him at Qdoba while I was sleeping, and she said she was out shopping when she got back. I asked her if she went out for lunch. She said she only went to Costco and Morris's. She was blatantly lying to my face again. Straight face like everything was normal. She just tried telling me that I just started crying while the song, The End, by Elliot Greer was playing because of my pre-workout I was drinking. Since I always work out before shift, I was screaming "fuck you" while repping out 315 pounds in 5 sets of 10. She just said, "Why do you get frustrated when you work out in my CrossFit gym in the garage?" Either this lady is screwing with me or she really thinks she's getting away with this. The plan is to confront her on February 7th when she returns. I'm in the process of getting all the paperwork filed and set so I can be in position of favorability and I can have closure on my terms. Update 4. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I confronted her this morning. Notified her whole family as well as the cowboy's now pregnant wife and his family. She says she can change and wants this life. She didn't tell me because she knew it would hurt me. It was just a fling, it didn't mean anything. That guy lied to her and she didn't know better. She left for her sister's house. I stuck to my principles. Her sister and family have resorted to gaslighting me. Apparently I caused this. Unprotected sex with another guy is apparently dismissive when I'm emotionally unavailable. She told the cowboy's wife it was all made up. Cowboy and his wife have decided to work it out. She's pregnant with his 3rd child. My wife's family said, "Well, family first," implying I'm not part of their family and they will side with my wife versus trying to help us heal. She scoffed when I recommended she go to individual therapy and try to work this out. She thinks it's all going to be fine and that I can be manipulated into staying. Update 5. She signed the paperwork and I filed for divorce this morning. We had a long talk. She said she 10 out of 10 wants to fix this marriage and will put in the effort over the next 8 to 9 days to prove that. I'm skeptical. She's looking for houses in Texas and trying to transfer with her company. I hope she gets the position. It will make this a lot easier. Update 6. Today, May 11th, the divorce is final. I ended up with the house. She's moving to Texas and transferring jobs. She still has no remorse and never took responsibility for throwing our life away. I still can't update my last post, so here is an update in a new post. Thank you to everyone who kept tabs on me. This still hurts, but I'm still moving forward. Deployment was tough. Coming home to a situation that ended in a divorce was even worse. The past several months since I have returned home from the Middle East has been the most difficult season of my life. Of course, there are two sides to every story, but this particular situation absolutely broke me as a man. It broke me down to the foundation I had come to build my life on. I had to rediscover my vulnerability. Sometimes it's okay to ask for help and admit you cannot handle something on your own. Grief demands a witness, as Dr. John Deloney always says. This was pain I could not simply internalize. The faith I rediscovered overseas has carried me throughout this, and I am very thankful for that. Trying to determine why people do evil things or commit betrayal have been difficult questions that I still don't have answers to. Evil hates the light, and truth is revealed by the light. Everything happens for a reason, even if that reason was to tell you that having a family and a life with someone in particular was not the intended path you were supposed to be walking on. If it wasn't for my faith, my closest friends from the academy, friends and family back home, and the men and women I deployed with constantly checking in on me, I'm not sure where I'd be right now. To those who kept calling and texting when I was in some very dark places, thank you. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.